Chapter 1262. Today was the 6th chapter. His hometown origin world, primal chaos void. A small boat was flying in the void. Dongwu Shuang was currently seated cross-legged at the bow of the boat. Currently, his cultivation had reached a crucial moment. Not just the avatars in Realm Heart Great Land or his hometown, even the avatars under the Burning Heart God Tree had temporarily stopped comprehending the Tao of Mirage and Illusory Realm. All avatars were fully focused on researching the Tao of Void. Heaven, Earth, Void, Origin, and Violent. The 5 phases are intertwined. The empty phase contains them. The thread phase connects them. Dongwu Shuang sat cross-legged at the bow of the boat. He lightly waved his right hand. Selah. A black crack abruptly tore apart the world. It tore apart the primal chaos void. It also tore apart the membrane of this origin world. Outside this black crack was the surging chaotic origin energy. This crack was approximately 5 kilometers long and was as thick as a finger. Selah, Selah, Selah. Every time he waved his hand or swiped his finger, a crack would appear in the origin world. As Dongwu Shuang was experimenting with his techniques, his avatars in the Realm Heart Great Land's 7-bell pagoda were doing their best to deduce and cultivate. Within the 7-bell pagoda, the efficiency of cultivation was incredibly high. Every time he perfected a technique, Dongwu Shuang would experiment again and again. Selah, Hela, the sound of tearing apart the membrane of the origin world made one's heart tremble. Gradually, this sound became weaker and weaker. The crack that was torn became even more inconspicuous. 10 days later, it was a very soft sound as if he was breathing. He lightly waved his palm, causing a continuous crack to appear in the world. This crack was very long, about 150 kilometers long. It was so thin that it was hard to discern with the naked eye. The trajectory of the crack was even slightly rhythmic. It was not a simple straight line or curve. It's about time. It is sufficient to control it to this stage. Next, it is time for the 3 thread phases to fuse with each other, using the multiverse to fuse into one and return to nirvana. Dongwu Shuang pondered. The Tao of Void had a total of 9 branches: Heaven, Earth, Void, Origin, Violent, Thread, Void, Multiverse, and Nirvana. The intertwining of thread, fuse with multiverse, and return to nirvana. Dongwu Shuang muttered. He waved his right hand again. But this time, each of his fingers was moving gently. 3 cracks that tore apart the membrane of the source world appeared one after another. After the 3 cracks appeared, they quickly converged and blasted open a pitch-black hole with a diameter of more than 10 meters. No, it's too stupid. He waved his hand again. He tested each move. The memories of the many doppelgangers were interlinked, and their comprehensions were constantly fused. Some ideas were quickly eliminated after being verified, while the correct ones were absorbed. He was getting closer and closer to the grand completion scene in his imagination. Because Dongwu Shuang owned a chaotic origin weapon and a top-graded secret treasure, he had experienced the final realm Tao of Void. He was constantly approaching the final realm of the Tao of Void. It's the combination of the 5 threads. After experimenting for half a year, only then did Dongwu Shuang discover his mistake. The 6th killing technique he created was derived from referencing the flying and swimming movements of that terrifying chaotic origin life form. But as Shuang experimented over and over again, there would always be some gaps. Shuang carefully recalled the scene of that terrifying chaotic origin life form flying and swimming in the past. Only then did he confirm it. It was indeed the combination of the 5 lines. The swimming of its tail was indeed 3 lines. But its enormous body was already a line. And the surrounding surging chaotic origin energy perfectly fused with its swimming body. It was also a line. That was the 5 lines. 5 lines as one. 1 as the guide, 1 as the power, and 3 as the foundation. Multitudes as one, return to nirvana. Dongwu Shuang sat cross-legged at the bow of the boat. At this moment, he was testing out his techniques time after time. Every time he tried, the power of his techniques would become more violent. It even alarmed Sword Master and Old Monster Stone to come and take a look. The two of them watched from afar before leaving with a smile. It was normal for Dongbua Shuang to have such a commotion while cultivating. Even with the embryonic form and the help of the 7-bell pagoda, Dongbua Shuang had spent 20,000 years before succeeding. He encountered too many problems. For instance, fusing the 5 lines as one. Every line had a myriad of variations that complemented and intersected with one another. On a day after cultivating for 20,000 years at the bow of the boat, Dongbua Shuang's eyes suddenly brightened. He punched out with his fist. Hong! The surrounding void abruptly turned silent. Everything shattered, shattering the membrane wall of the origin world. A terrifying ripple directly blasted into the vast chaotic origin dimension. This fist was like the flight of an enormous chaotic origin lifeform. It was grand and unstoppable, tyrannical, powerful. Dongbua Shuang's Tao of Void fused 9 branches into one. Eventually, it reached nirvana as the final extremity. Everything returned to the great nirvana. I've succeeded in my 6th killing technique. I've also succeeded in reaching the final realm. Dongbua Shuang felt his heart beating faster. There was a grin on his face. The 6th killing technique was the perfect fusion of 9 branches. He had finally comprehended the complete Tao of Void. Final realm, I've finally reached the final realm. Final realm in the Tao of Void. Shuang could not help but laugh out loud. He laughed out loud. It had been too long. Ever since he knew that his hometown was approaching the great apocalypse, he had felt an unseen burden pressing down on his body. He could not accept the great apocalypse happening to his hometown. His loved ones had died one by one, leaving him alone to survive the great apocalypse. This kind of loneliness would drive him crazy. He did not dare to relax at all times. He had reached a bottleneck after fusing 8 branches. He had no other choice. He could only try his best to create a technique that he felt was perfect. He constantly pursued perfection. The 1st killing technique, the 2nd killing technique, the 3rd killing technique. He created one after another. Every single technique allowed him to accumulate more and more experience. Finally, he had accumulated a lot of experience, and success came naturally. Under the profound mysteries contained in the flying posture of that chaotic origin lifeform, with a flash of inspiration, he created his 6th killing technique. This was also a technique that fused 9 branches together. The feeling of reaching the final realm in the Tao of Void is truly different. Dongbua Shuang chuckled. He stood at the head of the ship. With a thought, he traced along the spatial particles in the origin world, enveloping the entire origin world. He saw many places: Sword Master, Old Monster Stone, Forefather Tianyu, Blade Emperor, his wife Jing Qiu, his children Dongbua Yu, Dongbua Qingyao. He saw many people, yet they could not sense it. After all, this was through the essence of the void black fog spherical particles. Someone sensed it. Oh! Within an ordinary cosmos, Lord Lo Cheng had transformed into a blacksmith. He was currently focused on forging a blade. Suddenly he sensed something and looked up. His gaze pierced through the distance and landed on Dongbua Shuang with a grin. At the same time, he said, "Dongbua Shuang, congratulations on reaching the final realm in the Tao of Void before the great apocalypse, allowing you to save those you care about." By now, Dongbua Shuang knew the identity of this Lord Lo Cheng. There were legends about Lord Lo Cheng in the Broken Teeth Mountain range. This was a newly risen chaotic origin lifeform. He broke through with his strength and became a chaotic origin lifeform. Furthermore, it was rumored that he was a terrifying peak-level chaotic origin lifeform. His strength was not any weaker than Yuan. If one had to describe him, the 2 terrifying chaotic origin lifeforms that fell in the Broken Teeth Mountain range were not as strong as this Lord Lo Cheng. This was the difference between cultivators and innate chaotic origin lifeforms. No matter how strong innate chaotic origin lifeforms were, their control of energy was much weaker. Only cultivators could truly cultivate step by step. Their control of the laws and profound mysteries was too exquisite. Even if Lord Lo Cheng was comparable in strength to those terrifying chaotic origin lifeforms, His survival capabilities would likely be 10 to 100 times stronger. Just like Emperor Summert from the Realm Heart Great Land and those world masters from the Broken Teeth Mountain Range, they were all initial emperors. But against great emperors, world masters could not resist at all, yet Emperor Summer could escape with his life. He could even fight against several world masters in direct combat. His survival capabilities were much stronger. If not for Lord Lo Cheng's World Flower, I don't know how long I would have to wait. Dongbo Shui-ing added. Opportunities can be given by others, but strength has to be grasped by oneself. Lord Lo Cheng chuckled, properly cultivate. If you could reach the final realm in your Tao of Mirage and Illusory Realm, I might be able to admire you. Reaching the final realm in the Tao of Void? Lord Lo Cheng was a chaotic origin life form that overlooked the countless origin worlds and stood at the apex. He did not care about it. Instead, it was the Tao of Soul. Until now, none had reached the final realm. If Dongbo Shui-ing succeeded, Lord Lo Cheng would naturally admire him. Any chaotic origin expert would admire him. I'll definitely work hard. Dongbo Shui-ing did not feel any pressure. Without the pressure from the Great Apocalypse, he had sufficient time to cultivate. But he was clear that reaching the final realm in the Tao of Mirage and Illusory Realm was not easy even though he could see the path. One could see how difficult it was to reach the final realm in the Tao of Void. He had long reached the bottleneck. Furthermore, he had a supreme secret impartation, yet he only reached the final realm after creating the sixth killing technique. Lord Lo Cheng lowered his head and continued forging the blade embryo in his hand. He muttered softly, if the Tao of Soul reaches the final realm, I wonder what kind of mystical things would happen. Dongbo Shui-ing? Who knows? You might really become a chaotic origin life form. By then, there would be no need for me to stay here as a guard. The sound of forging continued. Blacksmith, blacksmith, bring out your toughest blade for me. I want the toughest blade. Find one that I'm satisfied with. I won't mistreat you. A voice could be heard from outside. A muscular man barged in. I'm coming. Lord Lo Cheng chuckled. Chapter 1263. Eastern Unicorn's Sacred World. In a secluded residence, Dongbo Shui-ing and his wife Jing Qiu lived in seclusion. Jing Qiu. Dongbo Shui-ing stood outside a meditation room and shouted. His voice was transmitted into the room. Rumble. The meditation room's door opened. Jing Qiu walked out helplessly. She glared at her husband unhappily. Snow Eagle, don't you know that I am in seclusion? I can't disturb you if there isn't anything important. I was just halfway through my experiment and you ruined it. Why are you still smiling here? Although your wife isn't as strong as you, cultivation is still very important, right? No matter what cultivation it is, we will stop today. Come, let us husband and wife drink together and celebrate. Dongbo Shui-ing pulled his wife along. Celebrate? Jing Qiu was slightly confused. Celebrate what? What is there to celebrate? Dongbo Shui-ing intentionally didn't say anything. He pulled his wife into a garden and the two of them sat facing each other. He flicked his hand. Flowers bloomed by the side and a fragrance permeated the air. Trees were sprouting and some butterflies were born. They circled around the flowers and the birds were chirping. In the distant lake, all sorts of mutated beasts appeared. Jing Qiu, let me pour some wine for you. This is the rain tree fruit wine that I personally brewed. Dongbo Shui-ing poured some wine. Jing Qiu was slightly surprised. She looked at the surroundings and couldn't help but ask, hurry up and say it. What is it that is worth celebrating? Dongbo Shui-ing passed his wine cup to his wife. Let's have a toast first. All right, up to you. Jing Qiu was helpless. The two of them clinked their cups and Dongbo Shui-ing said softly, let me tell you a big secret. I do want to know what big secret it is. Jing Qiu placed her wine cup down. I have already reached the final realm in the Tao of Void. Dongbo Shui-ing smiled. Jing Qiu was stunned. Then she widened her eyes. She stared at Dongbo Shui-ing. Really? Jing Qiu asked after a long pause. Really? Dongbo Shui-ing nodded. Jing Qiu was incomparably excited. They had long since known that their origin world was approaching the great apocalypse. People like Dongbua Yu, Dongbua and Qingyao were all extremely diligent in their cultivation. However, in reality, they all understood that the chances of them surviving the great apocalypse were too slim. Even forefather Tian Yu and the others felt that this was an extravagant hope. The greatest possibility was that Dongbua Shui-Ying had stepped into the final realm of the Tao of Void before the great calamity. After reaching the final realm, one's control over the void would increase greatly. With the great world-breaching teleportation technique, one would be able to bring other lifeforms with them. But I'm only telling you about this for now. You don't have to spread it. Dongbua Shui-Ying said, I still have an important matter to do in the Realm Heart Great Land. It won't be too late to publicize it after I finish it. All right. Jing Qiu nodded. The important matter was more important. This is great. Jing Qiu let out a sigh of relief. Dongbua Shui-Ying chuckled too. The two of them as husband and wife had long seen through life and death. They had seen through life and death in the past when they were still transcendents. They believed that Dongbua Yu and Dongbua Qingyao had already seen through life and death after cultivating to their current strength. Nonetheless, the two of them still hoped to protect their children. Realm Heart Great Land, Southern Cloud Nation, Feishue City. Dongbua Shui-Ying's avatar guarding the Feishue City was currently wielding a chaotic origin weapon. He was currently familiarizing himself with his new strength after breaking through. Mysterious. Dongbua Shui-Ying stood within the cultivation room. He held onto the Azure River Spear and revealed a look of astonishment. Ever since he reached the final realm in the Tao of Void, Dongbua Shui-Ying's consciousness easily permeated through the black fog spherical particles. The previously mysterious black fog spherical particles were now like cells in his body. He could easily control them. His consciousness could even permeate into the vast chaotic origin dimension. The enormous origin world was constantly producing ripples, causing the surrounding chaotic origin energy to fluctuate. Wielding the Azure River Spear, my perception towards the chaotic origin dimension has clearly become stronger. I can permeate through a greater distance too. Dongbua Shui-Ying sighed. And the 6th and 7th Supreme Secret Impartation Technique. The final two chaotic origin 7 strikes were extraordinary. Even after reaching the final realm and being guided by a supreme secret impartation technique, he could not execute them. He had to rely on the chaotic origin weapon to do so. It was precisely by relying on these two strikes that Dongbua Shui-Ying's strength could transcend ordinary unparalleled existences. Actually, he did not have the Azure River Spear. Just the first 5 chaotic origin strikes. By relying on top-graded secret treasures, he could fight against unparalleled existences. Just like Sword Master. These final 2 strikes. Dongbua Shui-Ying was startled. Naturally, he would not be foolish enough to imitate it. Instead, he absorbed the essence within and fused it into his own technique. He perfected his techniques. By absorbing a final realm Tao of Void technique from a supreme secret impartation technique, he executed it using his chaotic origin weapon. One day, Dongbua Shui-Ying was currently consolidating his techniques. He was executing a domain-related technique. The Tao of Void was originally famous for its domain techniques. 1. By relying on the Azure River Spear, his perception was much stronger. At this moment, his consciousness fused into the black fog spherical particles. In the blink of an eye, it had spread across the entire Realm Heart Great Land. Every single location within the Realm Heart Great Land, including Eternal Night Primogenitor, Extreme Night Primogenitor, and the 3 old ancestors from the Icy Snow Ancient Nation, had been thoroughly scouted by Dongbua Shui-Ying. Other than the Realm Heart God Palace and Broken Teeth Mountain Range, there were 3 other places that he had yet to explore. These 3 places were the secluded cultivation grounds of Emperor Summer, Drifter, and Limitless City Master. For the sake of avoiding detection, Dongbua Shui-Ying could sense the arrays left behind by Emperor Summer and the others. He knew that he would be triggered the moment he ventured deeper. Hence, he did not probe further. I can actually cover the entire Realm Heart Great Land with my senses. Dongbua Shui-Ying was slightly startled. The Realm Heart Great Land was too big. It was much bigger than most origin worlds. And the suppression from the Supreme Law was huge too. The detection range of a final realm expert's domain was usually very limited. It was still far from covering the entire Realm Heart Great Land. Even when the primitive ancient sacred world was intact, even though it was much smaller than the Realm Heart Great Land. Final realm experts could not envelop the entire world with a thought. If I didn't have the Azure River Spear, Dongwu Xueying tried not relying on the Azure River Spear. Instead, he relied on his own senses. The range of his senses rapidly shrunk. Even with a supreme-graded secret importation technique, the range he could cover with a thought was roughly twice that of the territory of the Summer Wind Ancient Nation. It was much weaker than the entire Realm Heart Great Land. I can actually envelop the entire Great Land? If that's the case, wouldn't that undying underworld emperor be unable to escape from my detection? Dongwu Xueying revealed a joyous look. If the enemy remained within his domain, even if the enemy escaped from one location to another, he could immediately conceal his tracks and change his aura. But because he was constantly observing the other party, Xueying could even see through the disguise of the other party. Naturally, the other party could not escape. If his domain was slightly smaller, like with a supreme-graded secret importation technique, it would merely be twice that of the Summer Wind Ancient Nation. The moment the enemy escaped out of his domain, he would immediately change his aura and appearance, making it impossible for Xueying to locate the enemy. But my domain covers everything. Dongwu Xueying revealed a joyous look. If I don't care about being discovered, I could even forcibly search for Emperor Summer, Drifter, and Limitless City Master. Dongwu Xueying thought. The moment he tried to do so, he would definitely be discovered. Just like how Emperor Summer and the others would be discovered by Xueying. Undying Underworld Emperor. It seems the heavens want you dead. Dongwu Xueying's eyes were filled with killing intent. Currently, this madman was wantonly plundering the souls of countless living beings, and Dongwu Xueying could not stop him at all. Previously, Limitless City Master was the only one who could track him down, yet he refused to help. Fortunately, Xueying had a supreme-graded secret importation and a chaotic origin weapon. Furthermore, his void domain was so vast that it could envelop the entire Realm Heart Great Land. The enemy could not escape. Xueying could even arrange an avatar at the boundary of the Broken Teeth Mountain Range. If Undying Underworld Emperor escaped to the Broken Teeth Mountain Range, he would only die faster. Very good. Dongwu Xueying suppressed his killing intent. It has been so long. Let me consolidate my strength a little more. Xueying would first consolidate his strength if he could improve it within a short period. As for the more complex ones like the Chaotic Origin Refinement Body, Dongwu Xueying felt that he could attempt to create the third level of the Chaotic Origin Refinement Body at his current realm. But clearly, the difficulty was too high. It was not something he could do within a short period. He just had to consolidate his strength slightly before he could act. Other than telling his wife and being discovered by Lord Lo Cheng, Dongwu Xueying did not tell anyone else about his breakthrough to the final realm. 600 years after breaking through, he had consolidated his strength and perfected the techniques he often used. It is about time. My strength has reached a peak within a short period. It is impossible for me to improve any further. It is time for me to act. Dongwu Xueying thought. Previously, he planned to find a group of world masters to team up with him. Now that his strength had increased, it was sufficient for him to fight one-on-one. Chapter 1264. Standing in his cultivation room with the Azure River Spear in his hand, he released his void domain. His enormous domain soon covered the entire Realm Heart Great Land. He only avoided a few places and immediately discovered where Undying Underworld Emperor was located. That was a huge palace hidden deep underground in the wilderness. There were many halls within the palace, and they were all places where Undying Underworld Emperor experimented. Large amounts of souls were being experimented on. There were 12 stone pillars, and every single one of them contained a powerful vengeful soul. These 12 vengeful souls were incredibly powerful. There were even some unique souls that made Dongwu Xueying feel strange. How many souls have he consumed in these experiments? Dongwu Shui Ying's eyes turned red as he watched. Even though the number of souls that died was not as high as the 15 nations, it was equivalent to the total population of an ordinary Tier 3 nation. Madman, if he chose to walk on this evil path in cultivation, he should be killed. See la, a black crack appeared. Dongwu Shui Ying took a step before disappearing from the place. Great Destruction Realm Teleportation. Within the towering palace, Undying Underworld Emperor was still patiently carrying out his experiments. He had not even begun experimenting on that chaotic origin life-form corpse. In his opinion, it was still too early. He had already confirmed some preparatory experiments. Only when he was 90% confident would he experiment on the corpse of the chaotic origin lifeform. Furthermore, it had only been a few tens of thousands of years since he broke down his talks with Dongwu Shui Ying. The experiments are going smoothly. In the past, I could refine a complete Deathwalker. Currently, the conditions aren't sufficient and I can't sacrifice it on a large scale. But it isn't hard to refine an incomplete Deathwalker. I originally planned to succeed within 1 trillion years. But now that I've experimented, I might not even need 1 trillion years. I believe I should be able to do it within 100 billion years. Undying Underworld Emperor was in a good mood. The moment I succeed, Yingshan Snow Eagle, I'll destroy your Feishua city first. Aren't you planning on moving the entire Yingshan clan over? By then, I'll wipe out the entire Yingshan clan. Only then would I be able to vent the anger in my heart. Undying Underworld Emperor looked forward to it. A complete Deathwalker was a half-chaotic origin life-form body that could fight against Supremes. An incomplete Deathwalker could still fight against great emperors in the eyes of Undying Underworld Emperor. Wiping out Feishua City? Effortlessly. Just wait and see. No one can help you. Unless you can reach the final realm before I refine it. Undying Underworld Emperor did not believe Shui Ying. Rip. Suddenly, a black crack appeared in midair within the towering palace. A white-robed young man walked out from within. He was none other than that outstanding monarch Feishua. He wielded a dark spear and stared at Undying Underworld Emperor coldly, shouting, "Underworld Emperor, your death date has arrived." Yingshan Snow Eagle? Undying Underworld Emperor was startled. At this moment, Dongwu Shui Ying's aura was grand and sharp. But this aura could be faked. Nonetheless, that chaotic origin weapon in his hand made Undying Underworld Emperor understand that Monarch Feishua might take the risk, but he would absolutely not risk a chaotic origin weapon. Losing an avatar was a minor matter. But if he lost his chaotic origin weapon, that would be a huge loss. Since he dared to bring his chaotic origin weapon here, it was clear he was absolutely confident. The worst-case scenario had still happened. You broke through to the final realm? Undying Underworld Emperor's voice was slightly hoarse. Roarty. The 12 vengeful spirits located on the 12 stone pillars of the palace discovered an outsider. Quite a few of them let out ear-piercing roars. Dongwu Shui Ying looked at those vengeful spirits. Most of them were mad and cruel. Dongwu Shui Ying only felt pity for these vengeful spirits. Rest assured, I'll soon avenge all of you. I have indeed reached the final realm. But are you surprised? Dongwu Shui Ying looked at Undying Underworld Emperor. Surprised. Very surprised. Undying Underworld Emperor understood. He had encountered his greatest crisis. During the time when he was on his path to becoming a chaotic origin lifeform, he had met with many huge crises. But at that time, experts were as common as clouds. He was merely one of them, and he could escape from death many times. But at this moment in the realm Heart Great Land, nobody could save him. I guess that you have a high chance of breaking through to the final realm. It's just that I did not expect it to be so fast. Undying Underworld Emperor stood up. It is an accident that your death date should be so fast. Less nonsense. Receive my move. The eyes of Dongwu Shui Ying flashed. Hong. The mirage and illusory realm descended. It was none other than the only killing technique he comprehended in the Tao of mirage and illusory realm, resplendent illusory realm. That resplendent world made Undying Underworld Emperor feel a strong attraction the moment he touched it. Not good. Undying Underworld Emperor felt his heart sinking. In terms of soul and willpower, the Mirage and Illusory Realm had an influence on his heart force similar to that on Supremes. But the 5 great Supremes of Broken Tooth Mountain Range had powerful bloodlines. They did not attach much importance to the profoundness of the realm. Even if their heart force was weaker, they could still unleash a powerful strength. But cultivators were different. The techniques executed by cultivators were incredibly profound. The moment their heart force was damaged, their strength would drop significantly. The influence on my strength is greater than what I expected. Undying Underworld Emperor knew that things were amiss. Hong! The Azure River spear in Dongbo Shui Ying's hand pierced out. The stab. The surrounding world collapsed abruptly. It suppressed and restricted Undying Underworld Emperor. And within that metallic heart of Undying Underworld Emperor, 2 drops of golden blood were ignited consecutively. A unique golden energy immediately surged into his palms. He did not hesitate to receive this stab from Dongbo Shui Ying head-on. This stab might seem ordinary, but in reality, it had already pierced through one of the golden palms the moment it was sent out. Pung! Undying Underworld Emperor was sent flying back. He smashed into the palace hall behind him, forming a ravine that was hundreds of thousands of kilometers long. Undying Underworld Emperor flew all the way back to the surface. Falling Star Strike. Dongbo Shui Ying took a step before leaving the ground. He arrived in midair before hacking out with the spear in his hand. Hong! The world trembled. Countless primal chaos dark light revolved around the spear. They fused together, forming a faint dark star at the spearhead. When the spear was hacked out, it was just like a dark star arcing through the sky. It directly clashed against Undying Underworld Emperor. This strike was too fast. Undying Underworld Emperor only felt dazed for a moment before the dark star rolled in front of him. He could only hurriedly use his hands to defend against it. Following that, he felt an intense pain in his palms. Ka. The bones in his palms broke. The spear then smashed against the body of Undying Underworld Emperor. It forced Undying Underworld Emperor back once again. Fresh blood spurted out from his mouth. The gap is so huge. Undying Underworld Emperor chose to defend against it twice. He wanted to use this opportunity to sense the gap between them. He estimated that he only had about 30% to 40% of the current strength of this monarch Feishue. His Mirage and Illusory Realm has greatly influenced my strength, forcing me to unleash 50% of it. Calculating it this way, even if I do my best without being affected, I should still be slightly weaker than him? When he went all out, his peak strength was roughly 70% of Dongbo Shui Ying's. Even though he had guessed it, the moment Dongbo Shui Ying broke through, he would most likely become the strongest expert in Realm Heart Great Land. But reality still chilled Undying Underworld Emperor's heart. This time, I'm truly in danger. He could already smell the aura of death. Even though both parties had just started fighting, the disturbance created by Dongbo Shui Ying had reached the final realm. He was using his chaotic origin weapon at full force, causing his combat power to be violent to the extreme. On the other side, Undying Underworld Emperor's strength was extraordinary too. How powerful was the clash between both parties? Even the palace which Undying Underworld Emperor prepared in peace was smashed apart. The ripples from the clash, it was instantly felt by all cosmos gods across the entire Realm Heart Great Land. What is happening? Such terrifying ripples? All of them were sensing the battle from afar. Some even relied on the heaven observation mirror to observe the battle. Some even relied on their own strength to observe from afar. Emperor Summer, Ancestor Fan, Emperor Tsang, Sword Master, Limitless City Master, Towering Sky King, and others were watching from afar. Originally, they felt bewildered, but when they saw the origin of the terrifying ripples, they were stunned. They saw 2 terrifying figures with surging auras. One was Monarch Feishue, and the other was the infamous Undying Underworld Emperor. And Undying Underworld Emperor was clearly injured. Chapter 1265. Pung. One could see shockwaves spreading in all directions at the region where Dongbui Ying and Undying Underworld Emperor fought. And at the core region of the battle, everything was shattered and blurry. Reaching their level, how fast were battles? In the blink of an eye, they could unleash dozens of killing techniques. The weak could not even see the battle clearly. And at this moment, the spectators were all apex experts in Realm Heart Great Land. They could see that Undying Underworld Emperor was at a complete disadvantage. He was even vomiting blood. His body was suffering from heavy injuries. It was a one-sided battle. The one who held the absolute advantage was Monarch Feishua, and the one who was in a terrible state was Undying Underworld Emperor. I don't stand a chance in a direct battle. Undying Underworld Emperor roared. Roar. An illusory figure suddenly erupted from his body. This was a huge illusory lion. This lion covered the world. Its power was so strong that it caused Dongbui Ying's expression to change slightly. He looked up at this illusory lion. What technique is this? I have never heard of it in Realm Heart Great Land before. Is this a trump card that Undying Underworld Emperor used when he stepped on the Tao path to become a chaotic origin life form? The enormous illusory lion opened its mouth and devoured. The world turned dark. Unable to dodge, Shui Ying was swallowed in a single gulp. At the moment when he was devoured, Dongbui Ying felt many wicked ripples assaulting his soul. It's just that being an existence that reached the apex in the Tao of Soul in many origin worlds, his defenses were naturally airtight. His soul energy formed an illusory realm that dissipated all incoming attacks. Those thoughts that were filled with resentment, death, and slaughter were being dissipated. Purring. Dongbui Ying remained clear-headed. He did not stop. Brandishing his spear, he charged out of this rapidly weakening illusory lion. It's really not affected at all. Undying Underworld Emperor's expression turned ugly when he saw that. He had originally cultivated the Tao of Death to the final realm. That time when he was attempting to become a chaotic origin life form, he had once met an expert from another civilization who had similarly reached a terrifying realm. That expert specialized in controlling death. After he fell, some of his treasures landed in the hands of Undying Underworld Emperor. Undying Underworld Emperor used his comprehension of the Tao of Death to control it. These moves are useless against me. Dongbui Ying brandished his spear, bringing with it a boundless might. As the two sides fought, the difference in strength became more and more obvious. In the past, when Undying Underworld Emperor fought against the experts from the various civilizations, his strongest technique was the Death Walker, followed by the Golden Flame Hearts. Naturally, other techniques like the Killing Curse Sacred Lion were becoming less and less important. In order to escape back to his hometown, the Death Walker had long since given up. The blood in Jin Yan's heart was constantly burning. More than half of it had already been burned. Moreover, he was clearly not a match for him in a head-on battle. Furthermore, Dongbui Ying did not have any shortcomings. He was formidable in close combat. His soul technique was terrifying too, rendering all sorts of strange techniques of Undying Underworld Emperor useless. As a result, Undying Underworld Emperor was constantly injured during the battle. Kill him. Kill this Undying Underworld Emperor. Monarch Feishu, kill him. In the entire Realm Heart Great Land, there were 6 great ancient nations and many Tier 2 and Tier 3 nations. There were even some organizations in the open or in the dark. Some were famous, and some were living in seclusion. At this moment, too many experts were rapidly watching the battle. They were even transmitting messages to their good friends, causing the number of experts watching the battle to rise. There might be a group of cultivators watching the battle from the Heaven Observation Mirror. Undying Underworld Emperor has such a day too. An old man said excitedly, ever since he returned safely, I have been waiting for this day. Finally, this day has come. Congratulations, teacher. Monarch Feishue will definitely kill this Undying Underworld Emperor. The disciples by the side were congratulating their teacher. The original clan of their teacher had been exterminated by Undying Underworld Emperor. That was something that happened before the First War of the Ancient Nations. At this moment, many experts were clapping and cheering. They were even looking forward to it, because Undying Underworld Emperor was ruthless in his actions. For his own selfish reasons, he would slaughter in all directions. In the legends, he represented death. Unparalleled existences had never been as crazy and cruel as Undying Underworld Emperor. As he wantonly slaughtered, he had already made too many enemies. Some of the weak cultivators in the past had become cosmos gods. But Undying Underworld Emperor did not care, because he was the #1 expert in Realm Heart Great Land. Those enemies did not dare to appear in front of him. Southern Cloud Capital, within the Royal Palace. Southern Cloud King was looking at the floating heaven observation mirror. By the side, Old Mother Ying Shan, Monarch Greedy Peng, Monarch Chunyu, and others were either in their true bodies or incarnations. Junior disciple brother Fei Shue, beautifully done. Monarch Greedy Peng could not help but praise. The others were also watching with excitement. Even though Southern Cloud King did not say anything, his eyes were emitting light. He hated the death of Undying Underworld Emperor too. He admitted that he had obtained its twin realm blades by chance in the past. But firstly, he had experienced many dangers before getting it. Furthermore, Undying Underworld Emperor had threatened him several times to collect many precious materials. The price of the precious materials had long surpassed that of a top-graded secret treasure. If he acted, he would threaten to wipe out the entire Southern Cloud Capital. Such a threat naturally filled the heart of Southern Cloud King, who was an absolute hero. But he had no choice. He could not resist against Undying Underworld Emperor. Not just him. There were too many cultivators who wished for Undying Underworld Emperor to die. But all along, Undying Underworld Emperor had always been high above. Before the First War of the Ancient Nations, he was already the #1 expert in Realm Heart Great Land. This time, after he returned, his name became even more famous. Even Emperor Summer admitted that he was weaker by a level. Like Southern Cloud King, he had given up previously. He felt that there was no hope and could only allow himself to be squeezed dry. Those enemies of Undying Underworld Emperor could only store their hatred in their hearts. They did not even dare to think of taking revenge, because the gap was too big. Nevertheless, the scene today made them excited. Monarch Fei Shue, Ying Shan's Snow Eagle, used his absolute power to injure Undying Underworld Emperor. The gap between them was clear. From today onwards, the position of the #1 expert in Realm Heart Great Land has changed. Emperor Summer stood within the royal palace watching from afar. He sighed. Just as what we expected, this monarch Fei Shue has finally walked to the position of the #1 expert in Realm Heart Great Land. Speaking of which, the scene of him becoming an upper honored guest of my fan clan is still vivid in my mind. Ancestor Fan sighed. It is natural for him to become the #1 expert in Realm Heart Great Land. Emperor Tsang added from the side, in the entire Realm Heart Great Land, there is only this monarch Fei Shue who has a supreme secret impartation and a chaotic origin weapon. Furthermore, his soul technique has even shaken the entire Broken Teeth Mountain range. By combining these two techniques, Undying Underworld Emperor could not resist at all. Sword Master, who stood by the side of the three, revealed a grin. Snow Eagle has hidden himself quite deeply, currently in the world. The group of unparalleled existences and ordinary final realm cultivators felt that it was natural. Because this monarch Fei Shue was too dazzling previously. When he was a level 2 cosmos god, any avatar of his could fight against final realm cultivators. His soul technique had caused the Broken Teeth Mountain range to tremble. His chaotic origin weapon had also aroused the greed of others. He was absolutely the most terrifying level 2 cosmos god in the history of Realm Heart Great Land. Now that he had broken through to the final realm, he was also the most terrifying final realm cultivator. As the experts under the world watched the battle with complicated emotions, the injuries of Undying Underworld Emperor were worsening. Die! Undying Underworld Emperor screamed madly. Hong! Countless insects appeared. They covered the world as they flew towards Dongbo Shueying. Dongbo Shueying stood there. With a thought, the consciousness of all insects were extinguished, causing them to fall down. Undying Underworld Emperor watched this with an ugly expression. He knew that it was pointless to release the poisonous insects which he had painstakingly collected. It was only because he was desperate that he took them out to try. Deep in his heart, he was still hoping for a miracle. What should I do? What should I do now? Undying Underworld Emperor gritted his teeth. I can't care anymore. I should survive first. At the very most, I'll just hide forever. South, the figure of Undying Underworld Emperor tunneled into a dark corridor and disappeared from the vicinity. Escaping? He escaped. Undying Underworld Emperor has escaped. All the spectators understood this point. It seems he has completely admitted defeat. Many experts understood this point. This was commonly seen in the Realm Heart Great Land. Those final realm devils frequently used this technique. The moment they escaped, it would be hard for them to chase after them. No matter what, this battle has proven that the strongest expert in the Realm Heart Great Land will be this Monarch Feishue from now on. As for Undying Underworld Emperor, he should be escaping the moment he sees Monarch Feishue. Many experts were already discussing with one another. They felt that this battle had ended. Unless he escaped? This matter has ended? There were some who wished for Undying Underworld Emperor to die. They felt unwilling when they saw what happened. But they were clear. It was easy to defeat a final realm expert, but hard to kill one. Escape? Dongbo Shui-Ying stood in midair. He wielded the chaotic origin weapon Azure River Spear. His consciousness had already fused into his ripples that covered every single region in the Realm Heart Great Land. For the sake of preventing Undying Underworld Emperor from escaping, he even covered the territories of Emperor Summer, Drifter, and Limitless City Master. He could no longer care about alarming them. His domain covered every single region in the Realm Heart Great Land. Dongbo Shui-Ying saw the escape trajectory of Undying Underworld Emperor clearly. Chapter 1266. The absolute majority of experts felt that this battle had ended. Only a minority hoped for miracles to happen. They wanted Undying Underworld Emperor to die. And Emperor Summer, Drifter, and Limitless City Master were aware of the problem. This void domain has already covered the Royal Palace. Drifter is still in the Myriad Realms Ancient Nation and is very far away from my Summer Wind Ancient Nation. It is impossible for him to cover this area. Then it can only be this Monarch Feishue. Emperor Summer watched from afar. The place where he fought with Underworld Emperor is very far away from my Summer Wind Ancient Nation. Yet his void domain could cover such a long distance? Or is he relying on a large number of avatars to execute his domain? In reality, even if he relied on his avatars, his domain was far from sufficient. Dongbo Shui-Ying's strongest avatar could only cover twice the area of the Summer Wind Ancient Nation by relying on a supreme secret impartation. And he could at most maintain 9 peak avatars. There were many huge places in the Realm Heart Great Land. There were also vast oceans. For instance, the Icy Snow Ancient Nation was ridiculously huge. At one of the boundary regions of the Realm Heart Great Land, Hong Long Long, at the end of the land was a surging storm. Beyond the storm was the membrane wall of the origin world. I've escaped to the end. Undying Underworld Emperor stood by the boundary of the storm. He did not care about the terrifying storm. Instead, he felt slightly nervous. The distance between this place and the place where they fought is more than half the entire Realm Heart Great Land. There has never been anyone who could cover such a huge region just by relying on a domain. There are many boundary regions, and I've casually chosen this place. Even if Monarch Feishue has avatars, the possibility of me being discovered by his avatar domain is very low. Even if I were to be discovered once, I can escape again. As long as I escape out of his domain, he can't find me. Unless he can trace me. Given my realm and my control over my soul, I can prevent my aura from leaking out. Only Limitless City Master could trace me. And Limitless City Master has never been willing to participate in huge karma. Undying Underworld Emperor softly nodded. He felt that the possibility of Monarch Feishue finding him was very low. Emperor Hades, where are you going? A voice rang out. Undying Underworld Emperor could not help but tremble. He turned over, only to see a white-robed young man wielding a black spear arriving through the void. He was none other than that monarch Feishue. Accompanying his arrival was the merciless spear technique of Dongbo Ying. Undying Underworld Emperor had to ignite his heart blood to defend against several moves before tearing another path to escape. I've been discovered? Could it be that his avatar happened to be waiting here? Don't run anymore. Undying Underworld Emperor had just appeared in another forest by the boundary of Realm Heart Great Land when a spear chased after him. It struck Undying Underworld Emperor's body until it tore apart. His body rapidly condensed back into darkness before escaping once again. Run, run, run. Undying Underworld Emperor tried to escape more than a dozen times. Gradually, his heart turned cold. Because even if the doppelgangers were enveloped by the domain, how could it be so coincidental that every time they escaped, they would be within the domain? He can trace people? Or is Limitless helping him? Undying Underworld Emperor stopped. He stood at the edge of an ocean world. Turning around, he saw Dongbo Ying rushing over once again. At this moment, the eyes of Undying Underworld Emperor were filled with resolution. As he parried against Dongbo Ying's killing technique, he anxiously transmitted over, "Monarch Feishue, do you want me to die? Then I'll let all living beings accompany me in death." Dongbo Ying stopped. He did not continue attacking. Instead, he stood in midair looking at Undying Underworld Emperor. "Accompany you in death? I truly admire you. You can trace me? Or did you persuade Limitless City Master to help you?" The eyes of Undying Underworld Emperor were filled with madness. His soul was trembling. That was a frenzied trembling before death. "Even though you are stronger than me, I can similarly let all living beings accompany me in deaths. Given your current injuries, how long can you last?" Dongbo Ying coldly said. "You can try. Aren't you worried about those ants? Either you let me go, or I'll let all living beings accompany me in death." Undying Underworld Emperor growled. Dongbo Ying looked at this Undying Underworld Emperor. This Underworld Emperor had indeed made him feel a strand of terror. Because this was a madman who had no worries. Furthermore, he was so strong that he was second only to Ying. It was impossible for Ying to allow the Ying Shan clan and other people whom he cared about to hide in Feishue City forever. But the moment they left, Undying Underworld Emperor might turn hostile in the blink of an eye. That would most likely result in another great massacre. I feel that letting you live will be a greater threat to the masses. Furthermore, I don't think you can kill too many cultivators in front of me. The eyes of Dongbo Ying flashed. The spear in his hand directly pierced out. "Monarch Feishue?" The mad roar of Undying Underworld Emperor reverberated across the world. Because Undying Underworld Emperor was constantly escaping and Dongbo Ying was constantly chasing after him, their battlefields appeared across many places in Realm Heart Great Land. The disturbance caused by their battle was huge. The moment they fought, many experts in Realm Heart Great Land sensed it. They immediately turned to watch the battle. They had also seen the conversation between Dongbo Ying and Undying Underworld Emperor. Undying Underworld Emperor threatened Monarch Feishue with the words, "All living beings will die with him," yet Monarch Feishue still acted. Good. There were many experts who were cheering for Ying when he acted. Including Emperor Xia and the other powerhouses, they all sighed. They were startled that Undying Underworld Emperor was still being chased after no matter how he tried to escape. They were also lamenting that Undying Underworld Emperor, who stood above many cultivators, would most likely die soon. Beautiful. In Southern Cloud Capital, Southern Cloud King, who had been silent all this while, finally spoke. He stared at the heaven observation mirror. When Undying Underworld Emperor escaped, he was afraid that Dongbo Ying could not chase after him. But when Undying Underworld Emperor chased after him, he became excited. When Undying Underworld Emperor threatened Monarch Feishue with the words, "All living beings will die with him," Southern Cloud King became worried that his disciple would be soft-hearted. Finally, is he finally going to be freed? This madman is finally going to die? Southern Cloud King watched with anticipation. Amazing! Truly amazing. I actually have such a junior disciple brother. The strongest expert in Realm Heart Great Land is actually my junior disciple brother. Monarch Greedy Peng sighed. He is so terrifyingly powerful. I am actually his senior disciple sister. Empress Ghostly praised from the side. Even Undying Underworld Emperor is about to be killed by Snow Eagle? Old Mother Yingshan felt that everything was like a dream. She could still remember clearly. That genius young fellow from the lineage of Marquis Ardent Fire from the Yingshan clan who was born as a void god. The rise of this genius young fellow was simply too amazing. That time, this young fellow even wanted the spearhead of the Scarlet Cloud God Spear. And it was she, Old Mother Yingshan, who bought it for him. After that, when the Ardent Fire City blood sacrifice happened, this Yingshan Snow Eagle, this prince, erupted with a terrifying combat power. He shocked the world with a single feat, and his name shook the Black Devil Four Nations and Black Devil Great Lake. A 10th level cultivator became an upper honored guest of the Fan clan. After becoming a cosmos god, he went to the Realm Heart God Palace and was killed by Eternal Night Primogenite. Only then did he choose to remain low profile. This period of hibernation, instead, he acted with the identity of Heaven's Will Taoist, intimidating all devils under the world by himself. And now, he is even about to kill Undying Underworld Emperor. Old Mother Yingshan muttered, such an absolute expert actually came from my Yingshan clan. At this moment, Old Mother Yingshan was filled with joy and pride. When Undying Underworld Emperor was constantly being chased, he could not escape. Dongwu Shuang did not care about his threats. Many experts across the entire Realm Heart Great Land felt that Undying Underworld Emperor might really fall this time. Many were cheering and slapping the table. But Dongwu Shuang felt his heart aching because he had to pay a price in order to kill Undying Underworld Emperor. But let us all die together. Undying Underworld Emperor escaped above a huge city before taking the initiative to attack. Hong. The surging void ocean distorted. It was doing its best to resist against the attack of Undying Underworld Emperor. Dongwu Shuang once again came over. Even though he specialized in domain suppression and was doing his best to chase after Undying Underworld Emperor at his fastest speed, a large number of beings were still killed. Many beings could not even react before they were killed. This made Dongwu Shuang even more furious. Even if he had to pay a price, he had to eliminate the other party. It seems he can't hold on any longer. Dongwu Shuang could ascertain that Undying Underworld Emperor was gravely injured. He should only be left with 20% of his life force. I can't hold on any longer. The current situation of Undying Underworld Emperor was much worse than what Dongwu Shuang expected, because he had to ignite his heart blood every time he fought. Even after igniting his heart blood, he still had 30% to 40% of Dongwu Shuang's strength. If he did not ignite his heart blood, he would only have 10% to 20% left. That way, he would die even faster. My heart blood is almost gone. The golden flame heart in his body was left with a pitiful 3 droplets of blood. Undying Underworld Emperor felt slight despair. Chapter 1267. I have no other choice. I can only seek for life and death. Undying Underworld Emperor gritted his teeth. Even though he did not wish to choose, the moment he ignited his heart blood, Dongwu Shuang would have an overwhelming advantage. He would no longer have a choice. Hong Hong, when a pair of golden palms parried against the terrifying spear, the surrounding night sky had already shattered. Many pitch-black cracks could even be seen on the other end of its chaotic origin dimension. Chaotic origin energy could be seen seeping in through the cracks. That was a higher dimension, a place where only existences at a higher level of life could truly live. So, Undying Underworld Emperor did not hesitate. He directly charged into the chaotic origin dimension through the cracks. Dongwu Shuang's expression changed. But he did not hesitate. With it so, he similarly entered the chaotic origin dimension. What? Undying Underworld Emperor has escaped into the chaotic origin dimension? That monarch Feishue is chasing after him too? They did not execute the Great Destruction Realm teleportation technique. Instead, they are forcing their way in. Are they tired of living? One is chasing and the other is escaping into the chaotic origin dimension? Didn't they say that those who have not jumped out of the cage would be corroded by the chaotic origin energy after entering the chaotic origin dimension? What do you know? How strong is Undying Underworld Emperor? Ordinary, unparalleled existences aren't his opponent. That monarch Feishue is even more amazing than Undying Underworld Emperor. Reaching their level, they should be able to survive for a short period in the chaotic origin dimension, right? The spectators across the entire Realm Heart Great Land were dumbstruck. Killing his way into the chaotic origin dimension? Clearly, he was not seeking death. This had already surpassed their imaginations. In the opinion of ordinary cosmos gods, unless they had some unique movement techniques, they would definitely die if they entered the chaotic origin dimension with their fleshy bodies. Monarch Feishue's heart of killing Undying Underworld Emperor is truly heavy. Emperor Summer watched from afar. He sighed. But he knew that once his fleshy body charged out of the origin world, as long as he did not stray too far away, he could still survive for a period. For instance, his chaotic origin refinement body was a cultivation technique that relied on the chaotic origin energy to refine his fleshy body. What is the current situation of the two of them? Ancestor Fan asked from the side. He did not know how the battle was going. The Grey Emperor and the Sword Master looked towards the Xia Emperor as well. Have a look. Emperor Summer waved his hand, causing a scene to appear by the side. It was the scene that happened in the chaotic origin dimension. When Undying Underworld Emperor charged into the chaotic origin dimension, the surrounding chaotic origin energy was forced apart. Nevertheless, Dongbo Shuiying, who wielded the Azure River Spear, chased after him at an even faster speed. Currently, in the entire Realm Heart Great Land, only a few could watch the battle. Even the majority of unparalleled existences could not. Snow Eagle. In the Southern Cloud Nation, Old Mother Yingshan became anxious. Kill his way into the chaotic origin dimension? Impulsive, too impulsive? Southern Cloud King was incredibly worried. Even if he killed Undying Underworld Emperor, he might accidentally die in battle, leaving his chaotic origin weapon in the chaotic origin dimension. By then, it would be too late for regrets. In the Realm Heart Great Land, unparalleled existences relied on supreme graded secret treasures. The reason why Dongbo Shuiying could reach his current combat power was partly because of his chaotic origin weapon. Naturally, he still had his Mirage and Illusory Realm technique. I don't know what's going on. I can't even see anything. I don't even know what would happen after killing my way into the chaotic origin dimension. Many experts were anxious and nervous. This was the life and death battle between the two most terrifying existences in the entire Realm Heart Great Land. They wanted to know the outcome. Within the chaotic origin dimension. Dongbo Shuiying did not hesitate. He closely followed through the black crack into the chaotic origin dimension. After reaching the final realm, he spent 600 years consolidating his strength. During this period, he had tried creating the third level of chaotic origin refinement body. He had also taken the initiative to enter the chaotic origin dimension because it was normal at this level. When his Azure River Spear erupted, he could easily blast out an enormous hole that spanned 100 meters. Large amounts of chaotic origin energy surged in. It was not much different from being in the chaotic origin dimension himself. He sent an avatar into the chaotic origin dimension without bringing along his chaotic origin weapon. Because he had experience, Undying Underworld Emperor did not hesitate to enter the chaotic origin dimension. Hong, he entered once again. Even though he had experience, he was still stunned and obsessed by it. The Tao of Void was very unique. It was more suited to pry into the mysteries of the chaotic origin dimension than most Tao paths. As Dongbo Shuiying charged in, he used his Azure River Spear to control the surrounding chaotic origin energy and split it apart. Nonetheless, the chaotic origin energy was endless. Some of it still touched his fleshy body. The moment it touched his fleshy body, it rapidly corroded away. His fleshy body was like air. The chaotic origin energy directly penetrated through his fleshy body and soul. The process of penetrating was also the process of corrosion, because he had the Azure River Spear to control it. Furthermore, the final realm Tao of Void had reached an unfathomable stage in his control of voidification. Hence, he could minimize the corrosion of his fleshy body, causing the thin chaotic origin energy to have a weak effect on his chaotic origin refinement body. His recovery speed was sufficient for him to recover. Realm Heart Great Land. This was an enormous origin world. It was vast. It was emitting endless ripples that were constantly clashing against the surrounding chaotic origin energy. In reality, the chaotic origin energy was also influenced by the power of the Realm Heart Great Land. The closer one was to the Realm Heart Great Land, the thinner the chaotic origin energy would be. The further one was, the deeper one went into the chaotic origin dimension, and the more vast the chaotic origin energy would be. The power of an origin world was extremely powerful. Hence, even if it was a chaotic origin life form, if they controlled an origin world and relied on that origin world, they would still be able to greatly improve their strength. After all, it was something that gathered an incomparably vast world energy into a single body. He really killed his way over. Undying Underworld Emperor glanced at Dongbo Shuiying, who was chasing after him. His expression turned ugly. Then come. For the sake of killing me, are you willing to give up this avatar of yours? Once this avatar is gone, this chaotic origin weapon will be gone too. Undying Underworld Emperor continued charging forward in a frenzy. When he just charged out of the Realm Heart Great Land, the surrounding chaotic origin energy was slightly less concentrated. Furthermore, the supreme law of the Realm Heart Great Land was still affecting the surroundings, preventing the corrosion from being too strong. As he continued moving forward, the area ahead became darker and quieter. The chaotic origin energy became denser and denser. It was constantly scouring through the fleshy body and soul of Undying Underworld Emperor. His fleshy body and soul were constantly being corroded. You can't escape. A furious roar actually reached the ears of Undying Underworld Emperor through the chaotic origin energy. A spear had already smashed down in front of Undying Underworld Emperor. So fast, Undying Underworld Emperor felt incredibly anxious and unwilling. That time when he left the Realm Heart Great Land, it was because he obtained the opportunity to charge into the Tao of chaotic origin that he was bestowed with the movement technique by Yuan. That was how he could travel through the chaotic origin dimension. But after spending so much time in the external world, his fear towards the chaotic origin dimension had gradually decreased. He had even entered the chaotic origin dimension many times. He had experience. He even pondered over many techniques. He felt that compared to this new final realm expert, he should have some advantage when fighting in the chaotic origin dimension, even if the other party was a Tao of Void expert. But he was wrong. Firstly, Dongbo Shuiying had acquired the chaotic origin Tao scroll before. This was a cultivation technique that Emperor Summer used the chaotic origin energy to cultivate his fleshy body. Dongbo Shuiying had attempted to perfect it. He had even taken the initiative to enter the chaotic origin dimension before. Furthermore, using the chaotic origin energy to cultivate his fleshy body would be more effective when resisting against the denser chaotic origin energy. Secondly, the Tao of Void was the most advantageous in the chaotic origin dimension. No matter if it was voidification of the fleshy body to reduce the impact or flight speed, it could be used to great effect. Instead, it was other Taos that were significantly weaker in the chaotic origin dimension. Thirdly, the chaotic origin weapon Azure River Spear was able to control the chaotic origin energy, allowing Dongbo Shuiying to survive for a longer period in the chaotic origin dimension. Due to these reasons, Dongbo Shuiying was able to rapidly catch up to him. Pung! The spear came smashing down. Undying Underworld Emperor simply used both his hands to block the incoming force, allowing this powerful smash to send him flying further away. He was getting further and further away from the Realm Heart Great Land, this enormous origin world. Come, if you are daring, come. Continue coming. Enter deeper into the chaotic origin dimension. As Undying Underworld Emperor was flying backwards, he was still staring at Dongwu Shui-ing. He was becoming more and more frenzied. Chapter 1268. Dongwu Shui-ing felt that as he flew, even though he turned around, the Origin World Realm Heart Great Land was still very close behind him. But that was because the Realm Heart Great Land was too huge. The location where they fought was still affected by the energy coming from the Realm Heart Great Land. But as they flew at high speeds, they could feel the density of the chaotic origin energy continuously increasing. This density had far exceeded what he could use during cultivation. Fortunately, he had the control of the Azure River Spear, allowing the chaotic origin energy to form a path that minimized the corrosion. Hong hong hong. Dongwu Shui-ing's speed was incredibly fast. He did not show any mercy the moment he caught up. As for Undying Underworld Emperor, he did not care about his life. Nevertheless, his fleshy body gradually changed color, turning grayish-white. He can't hold on any longer. Dongwu Shui-ing revealed a joyous look. He actually can't hold on any longer. Previously, the battle in the Realm Heart Great Land has heavily injured me. If my body was in perfect condition, I could still hold on for a longer period. At this moment, many scenes flashed through the mind of Undying Underworld Emperor. Ever since he rose from being weak to become a hegemon in the Realm Heart Great Land, he was dazzling. He struck fear in many experts across the entire Realm Heart Great Land, thinking that he was the incarnation of death. His strength was even favored by Yuan. He was even filled with confidence when he stepped on the path to become a chaotic origin life form. He left his hometown. Only after he left did he understand that there was always a sky beyond the sky. Beyond geniuses, there were even more geniuses. He failed. Just like the majority of experts from civilizations, some died, and some were even exiled. It was already fortunate that he could escape back. Even after escaping back, I've met this monster, Monarch Feishue. Ignoring everything else, his soul technique is the most terrifying I've ever seen. Undying Underworld Emperor looked at Dongwu Shui-ing before grinning. That grayish-white face of his that was filled with a decaying aura caused Dongwu Shui-ing to be slightly startled. Dongwu Shui-ing had a premonition. So, Undying Underworld Emperor's body abruptly transformed into a dark light. He then began escaping. Escaping? You are still thinking of escaping at this moment? Even though the other party's body had been corroded to the point of death, the other party could still survive if he escaped. Swoosh. Dongwu Shui-ing instantly executed his Great World Destruction teleportation technique as well. After reaching the final realm, he was able to execute the Great World Destruction teleportation technique with his physical body. Phew. He chased after the position of Undying Underworld Emperor and soon caught up to him. 2 escape techniques. Clearly, the Void Dao's Great Destruction Realm Evasion technique was faster. Die. At the moment when he caught up to Undying Underworld Emperor, a spear lashed out at the body of Undying Underworld Emperor, blasting him out of the passage. While traveling, they couldn't be attacked. Dongwu Shui-ing naturally exited the passage as well. Chi. Even though Shui-ing was long prepared and had relied on the Azure River Spear to control the surrounding chaotic origin energy, he was still unable to do so. But the surrounding chaotic origin energy was too horrifying. Although it was just a blink of an eye, the distance between them was 1,000 times greater than when they were flying in pursuit at the beginning. Previously, they were still very close to the Realm Heart Great Land. But now, they were much further away from the Realm Heart Great Land. Dongwu Shui-ing relied on the Azure River Spear to control the chaotic origin energy, yet he could feel the surrounding chaotic origin energy becoming incredibly heavy. It was more than 1,000 times heavier than before. Large amounts of chaotic origin energy were sweeping across his fleshy body and soul, causing his fleshy body to be corroded. His skin had even turned grayish-white. This grayish-white was even permeating into his body. Instead, the damage done to his soul was much lower. Under this corrosion, even with the help of the Azure River Spear, my fleshy body can only last for a breath of time. My soul can instead last for a few dozen breaths. Dongbo Shuiying immediately understood this point. South, he closely followed up. The spear in his hand rapidly pierced out. His spear expanded. Pu Qi. It directly pierced through the chest of Undying Underworld Emperor. Undying Underworld Emperor's fleshy body could no longer withstand the corrosion before executing his movement technique. At this moment, under this much denser chaotic origin energy, the insides of his body began collapsing. This spear pierced through him. He did not even have the strength to resist. Instead, his body completely collapsed. Peng! When he was pierced through, Undying Underworld Emperor stared at Dongbo Shuiying. Following that, his body completely collapsed and dissipated within the chaotic origin dimension. The robe he was wearing had become tattered under the corrosion. Even his storage Eden treasures were similarly corroded, revealing many items within. Many items were also rapidly corroding. Only a few could remain intact in the chaotic origin dimension. For instance, unique materials like that chaotic origin lifeform corpse or the crown of Undying Underworld Emperor. That was his supreme graded secret treasure, the Death Emperor crown. Boo! Dongbo Shuiying waved his hand. He controlled the void to keep these items. At the same time, he grabbed that Death Emperor crown with a single hand. He looked down at the Death Emperor crown. This was the supreme graded secret treasure that Undying Underworld Emperor used to shake the world. It was also the proof that he killed Undying Underworld Emperor. Relying on this, he would be able to intimidate the world. He could even kill Undying Underworld Emperor. How could those devils compare to Undying Underworld Emperor? Who? Dongbo Shuiying immediately executed the Great Destruction Realm teleportation technique. He rapidly teleported towards the distant Realm Heart Great Land. In a short period, his skin and part of his muscles had turned grayish-white. This corrosion speed was too fast. Emperor Summer, Drifter, Limitless City Master, and several other unparalleled existences were watching the battle between Dongbo Shuiying and Undying Underworld Emperor outside the Realm Heart Great Land. In the end, the body of Undying Underworld Emperor turned grayish-white. He continued fleeing deeper into the chaotic origin dimension using his movement technique. They could no longer watch the battle. The body of Undying Underworld Emperor has been corroded to the point where it can no longer hold on. Monarch Feishue has really chased after him? They watched as Dongbo Shuiying continued using the Great Destruction Realm teleportation technique. They could not help but feel shocked. This time, he is determined to kill Undying Underworld Emperor. But isn't this too reckless? Even though one was chasing and the other was fleeing, in reality, they are still very close to the origin world of the Realm Heart Great Land. But now that he is using his movement technique, even if it is only for a moment, he would travel very far away. That is truly deep within the chaotic origin dimension. The corrosion over there is much more frightening. Given the current state of Undying Underworld Emperor's fleshy body, as long as Monarch Feishue slightly disturbs his movement technique, Undying Underworld Emperor would undoubtedly die. If Monarch Feishue chased after him, Undying Underworld Emperor would definitely die. But can Monarch Feishue return alive? Even though he has many avatars, this avatar of his has a chaotic origin weapon. Emperor Summer and the others became nervous. They took the initiative to form a screen, allowing Emperor Tsang, Ancestor Fan, Sword Master, and other unparalleled existences to see it. Everyone was having a unique thought process. On one aspect, they were startled at the strength of Monarch Feishue. They felt that he could kill the previous #1 expert in Realm Heart Great Land, Undying Underworld Emperor, to such an extent. Furthermore, he seemed to know the tracing technique that prevented Undying Underworld Emperor from escaping. Such a technique could kill Undying Underworld Emperor. Most likely, he could kill other unparalleled existences in the world. Even if Monarch Feishue had many avatars, he could still kill all the avatars of the enemies. The enemies could only survive if they hid their avatars in other origin worlds. Such a deterrent force, it was sufficient to frighten the world. Much less the devils, even unparalleled existences would feel pressured. It is fine if Monarch Feishue is powerful. More importantly, It is pointless to hide one's tracks in front of him. Emperor Summer sighed. Previously, an ordinary final realm expert could wreak havoc in the world precisely because the moment he concealed his tracks, even I can't trace him. The only one who could trace him, Limitless City Master, isn't willing to participate. It's just that Monarch Feishue doesn't just have the strength to kill, he also has the tracing ability. It is impossible to escape from him. But if he doesn't have his chaotic origin weapon, his deterrent force will be greatly reduced. Emperor Summer said, this time, he is still slightly rash in his pursuit. The reason why Dongwu Ying dared to pursue after Monarch Feishue with his movement technique was because the corrosive effect on him was minimal. But Monarch Feishue usually wouldn't do things unless he was confident. Like previously when he tried to kill Undying Underworld Emperor, he didn't act because he could not invite Limitless City Master. Ancestor Fan said, since he dared to chase after Monarch Feishue, he should be confident. If he killed Undying Underworld Emperor and brought the chaotic origin weapon back to the Realm Heart Great Land, that would be terrifying. Emperor Tsong sighed, I doubt there would be anyone in the entire Realm Heart Great Land who doesn't revere him. Emperor Summer nodded. Reaching that stage, he did not have the confidence to resist against Dongwu Ying even in his territory in the capital. Even he, Emperor Summer, felt the same. Other unparalleled existences could not fight against this Monarch Feishue even in their territories. This is the unparalleled existences across the entire Realm Heart Great Land, and a large number of cosmos gods sensed it almost at the same time. Many heaven observation mirrors immediately turned towards the origin of that terrifying fluctuation. That was a figure that forcefully blasted through the membrane of the origin world, blasting out an enormous black hole spanning several hundred meters. The white-robed Dongwu Ying held onto the Azure River Spear in one hand and the Death Emperor Crown in the other. Death Emperor Crown? That is the Death Emperor Crown of Undying Underworld Emperor? Seeing Monarch Feishue returning with the Azure River Spear, many unparalleled existences felt their hearts trembling. The beautiful dream of this Monarch Feishue losing his Azure River Spear was gone. After all, nobody was willing to have a terrifying existence that could threaten their lives appear above their heads. And many cosmos gods trembled when they saw that Death Emperor Crown. They understood. That was the supreme graded secret treasure of Undying Underworld Emperor. One could easily imagine the fate of Undying Underworld Emperor when his supreme graded secret treasure fell into the hands of Dongwu Ying. He is back. He is back. In Southern Cloud Nation, Southern Cloud King, Old Mother Ingshan, and others were incredibly excited. Terrifying. Undying Underworld Emperor is finally dead. He is finally dead. Many experts across the entire Realm Heart Great Land felt their hearts trembling. Yama Religion Mastered from Black Devil Great Lake looked at the heaven observation mirror. That white-robed figure holding onto the Death Emperor Crown with the Azure River Spear in the other hand sighed. From today onwards, the Realm Heart Great Land has entered a new era. An era that belongs to Monarch Feishue, an era where devils no longer exist. End of this chapter. The 36th chapter, final chapter, ended. Tomorrow, they would stop updating for a day to plan the plot. The 37th chapter would be updated the day after tomorrow. Chapter 1269. Eternal Night Primogenitor and Extreme Night Primogenitor stood side by side. Their capes were fluttering in the wind. They were both watching the source of that terrifying disturbance, the black hole in the membrane wall of the origin world. A white-robed figure flew in from the black hole. He held the Azure River Spear in one hand and the Death Emperor Crown in the other. That unseen killing intent could be felt even from a great distance away. Fortunately, Eternal Night, you have lowered your head previously. Extreme Night Primogenitor chuckled. Otherwise, the next unparalleled existence to die after Undying Underworld Emperor would be you. Eternal Night Primogenitor was watching too. His eyes were faintly filled with golden light. Fortunately, I have lowered my head. I expected that the moment he reached the final realm, he would be able to suppress Undying Underworld Emperor in the Tao of Void. Under his soul technique, my strength was greatly reduced. Even in the Eternal Night City, I would most likely lose my life. Who would have thought that even undying Underworld Emperor was killed so easily? Even though there were some twists and turns in the process, the previous #1 expert in Realm Heart Great Land had died so quickly. It was still too straightforward. Underworld Emperor is very formidable. At the very end, he used all sorts of techniques that I could not see through. I even felt that he was a huge threat. Extreme Knight Primogenitor chuckled, "It's just that his techniques are useless against Monarch Flying Snow. From today onwards, there is an additional deterrent spear above our heads. If we were to go back on our words, he could easily kill us." Eternal Knight Primogenitor mocked himself. They were unparalleled existences. Even ordinary final realm existences were free and unfettered. Sometimes they could do whatever they wanted. So what if they massacred an entire city? So what if they used blood sacrifice? Regardless, they were not afraid of anything. Nobody could threaten their lives. Even the high and mighty Yuan could not be bothered to care about ants as long as it did not affect the order of the entire Realm Heart Great Land. But now, they no longer dared to do whatever they wanted. It was pointless even if they hid in their territories. The territories had to construct many huge arrays. The more top-graded the array, the greater the price. After reaching the unparalleled level, they had to increase their strength further. The price was too high. Like Emperor Summer and Eternal Knight Primogenitor, they were quite formidable in their territories, yet the increase in their strength would not be too exaggerated. That was because it was impossible for them to construct enough top-graded arrays endlessly. The weaker they were, the more exaggerated the increase. Ordinary Ultimate Realm cultivators did not have paramount secret treasures, so their combat strength was relatively weak. The help of the magic formation in the nest was more obvious. In the nest, he could have the combat power of the invincible realm. Just like Dongbo Shuang. Reaching his current stage, the price of constructing arrays suitable for his current realm in his territory was ridiculously high. It was hard to find materials that could withstand the 7th strike of the chaotic Origin's 7 strikes. Undying Underworld Emperor felt awkward too. If he did not care about the price to construct his territory, the strength unleashed by relying on the territory might not be as effective as igniting his heart blood. What's more, even if they had to pay a huge price to build their nest and defend it, even if the effect was comparable to the burning of heart blood, Dongbo Shuang would send a large group of world lords to surround him, and he would still have to run for his life. Become stronger. Strange soul technique. It can also easily summon a large group of world lords. The invincible existences were all fearful and in awe. This shockingly talented monarch Flying Snow was absolutely the strongest final realm expert with the greatest deterrence in history. After killing Underworld Emperor, he took the initiative to blast apart the membrane of the Origin world, creating a huge disturbance. He even deliberately held onto the Death Emperor crown. It seems he is planning to intimidate the world. Following this, the Realm Heart Great Land is going to change. Many experts could vaguely guess what would happen after seeing how Dongbo Shuang deliberately held onto the Death Emperor crown. Reality was as such. Other than the great devils who had long lowered their heads and sworn oaths, the other arrogant and egotistical existences originally wanted to observe the situation. They were not willing to lower their heads and swear oaths to bind themselves. But it was too late for them to beg for mercy now. "Monarch, I am willing to swear an oath." But, too late. "Monarch, I have stopped killing. I have never killed." "But you have killed in the past." Just a single night. It caused the entire Realm Heart Great Land to change color. Some of the famous devils on the list were at the Paragon Master level. As long as they did not lower their heads and swear an oath before he fought with undying Underworld Emperor, they would be able to do so. They would no longer have the chance to do so. Dongbo Shuang stood in the night sky looking at the annihilated devil. "If I were to spare you, who would spare the trillions and trillions of sentient beings that you massacred?" Towards the devils including Eternal Knight Primogenitor, Moonflower King, 8th Silk Island Master, and many other great devils, Dongbo Shuang wanted to kill all of them. because the blood on the hands of these devils was simply too much. But previously he did not have sufficient strength before he reached the final realm. Many great devils could guess that the moment this monarch Feishue broke through to the final realm, it would be their doomsday. Many came to lower their heads. If Xueying did not give them a chance to live, these great devils would likely turn mad. Hence, they could only compromise. As long as he lowered his head and swore an oath, he would let bygones be bygones. Now I have the power to punish. Beg for mercy? Dongbu Xueying's heart was extremely cold. Without killing enough, how are we going to intimidate the later generations? How do we change the era? Cosmos God-level devils would either lower their heads and swear an oath, or those who did not would be exterminated. After the terrifying day known as the Devil Extermination Night, the atmosphere in the entire Realm Heart Great Land changed drastically. In the entire Realm Heart Great Land, there was no longer any blood sacrifice. Because only the few apex devils knew how to refine the essence of blood spirit. Since they did not dare to do evil, it was meaningless to sacrifice countless sentient beings. Moreover, there was no such devil who dared to court death. Once the demon was discovered, he would definitely die. There was no need for Dongbu Xueying to make a move. Many experts who could not stand the sight of evil took the initiative to attack. Times have really changed. He has truly changed the entire Realm Heart Great Land. Many cosmos gods could not help but be startled as they watched the transformation of the Realm Heart Great Land. As time passed, in the Realm Heart Great Land, many new generations of cultivators were startled. What? There was a blood sacrifice in the past? A city with trillions of sentient beings was directly massacred by the blood sacrifice? Is this real or fake? The great devils in the past could easily kill trillions of sentient beings? That's impossible. How could there be such a crazy devil? They did not believe it since they had never seen it, because the current Realm Heart Great Land was a devil that everyone wanted to kill. The moment a devil was discovered, there would be a group of cultivators who would take the initiative to kill them. All of them had a strong sense of justice. In reality, before the rise of Dongbu Xueying, the so-called devils could only be considered small fries in the gathering grounds of those devils. Wretched green old devil, you can't escape from us. Many training teams have been wiped out one after another. The few of us thought that it was someone who met danger and died. Who would have thought that it was you, you old devil? You should just die. 7 figures chased after a green-robed old man who was fleeing in panic. And on top of a mountain far away, 2 figures were currently standing there. One was the white-robed Dongbu Xueying, and the other was the loose black-robed Emperor Summer. The 2 of them stood side by side as they watched everything happening. Feishue, you are truly amazing. It seems like it was just yesterday that you killed Undying Underworld Emperor. Currently, the atmosphere in the entire Realm Heart Great Land has completely changed. Previously, I did not dare to imagine that the Realm Heart Great Land would turn into what it is today. Emperor Summer chuckled. Even this person is called an old devil? He is even being chased after by others. What do you mean it was just yesterday? It has been more than 200 billion years. Dongbu Xueying could not help but retort. To Emperor Summer, it might be a short period, but to him, Dongbu Xueying, it was a relatively long period. 200 billion years. That was sufficient for many generations of primal chaos geniuses to rise. Currently, the number of sentient beings in the Realm Heart Great Land was much more than in the past. Because a small city was relatively safe, it was rare to see even primal chaos devils. 200 billion years is indeed a short period. Emperor Summer sighed, but speaking of which, I quite like this world. The 37th chapter, On the Road, began. The new chapter had just begun, and one had to spend more time thinking and preparing. Chapter 1270. I like this kind of world as well. Dongbu Xueying stood at the top of the mountain, looking at the vast world around him with a smile on his face. In the past, he had wanted to change the entire world so that demons could no longer run amok. Even he himself had thought that this goal was too far away. In fact, there weren't many who thought highly of him. At that time, the experts in Realm Heart Great Land were already used to the order of that era. They were used to how final realm experts were free and unfettered, and nobody could threaten them. However, everything changed. But do you see the danger behind us? Emperor Xia asked. Hidden danger? Dongwu Shuiying was taken aback. Population. Although the rate at which cultivators reproduce is very slow, and generally speaking, it is safer to live within cities. Cities have limited space as well. However, after 200 billion years, more and more cities were being built, and the number of cultivators was also increasing. The burden on the Realm Heart Great Land is getting bigger and bigger. According to what I know, the Realm Heart Great Land is different from other origin worlds. Other origin worlds would experience a great apocalypse, and everything would return to the beginning. But the Realm Heart Great Land is created by Yuan. It is an eternal existence, and it would not be destroyed by the great apocalypse. Nevertheless, the population keeps increasing, and it is impossible for the Realm Heart Great Land to withstand it indefinitely. Dongwu Shuiying nodded, yes. Now that 200 billion years have passed, the additional burden is still within the scope that the Realm Heart Great Land can endure. But as this continues, there will be a day when the Realm Heart Great Land retaliates. Emperor Summer said, or perhaps Yuan has set a new law. Regardless, he will definitely suppress the population of the entire Realm Heart Great Land. Yuan has set the rules. He won't massacre everyone directly. Dongwu Shuiying said. For instance, the Realm Heart God Palace prepared opportunities and supreme-graded secret treasures for the final realm cultivators. Clearly, Yuan still left plenty of opportunities for the weak. The Xia Emperor nodded slightly. The two of them did not say anything else because they could not tell what Yuan would do. Perhaps it would be more merciful, such as directly changing the rules and making it much more difficult for cultivators to reproduce. It was naturally difficult to expand the population like this. It could also be even crueler, where the strong preyed on the weak, everything was possible. Let's go. The two of them immediately vanished into thin air. In the Fan Clan Magic Mountain. Teacher, I've flipped through the scriptures within the clan and know that our Fan Clan has the Burning Heart God Tree. It is of great help to those who cultivate in the Tao of Soul. Currently, I am just a step away from breaking through to the Cosmos God Realm. Is it possible for me to cultivate under the Burning Heart God Tree? A young man asked the black-robed old man by his side. Heart-burning divine tree? The black-robed old man glared at him. My Fan Clan is currently benefiting from that monarch Feishue. Our treasures and opportunities have increased by quite a bit. How about this? I will send you to the Illusion Demon Hall. As for the Burning Heart God Tree, you can forget about it. The youth hastily said, Why? I flipped through the books, and it was recorded in the books that ever since the Patriarch created the non-phase mystical technique under the Burning Heart Divine Tree, he rarely used the Burning Heart Divine Tree to cultivate. The disciples in the clan should be able to exchange for it, but I couldn't find this item on the exchange scroll. That's right, the black-robed old man said. Now, that Imperial Emperor Feishue is cultivating under the Burning Heart Divine Tree. Emperor Feishue? The youth's eyes widened. Monarch Feishue. Currently, his influence in Realm Heart Great Land was too huge. He was publicly acknowledged as the #1 expert in Realm Heart Great Land. That was someone who forcefully climbed to the top after killing the previous #1 expert in Realm Heart Great Land, Undying Underworld Emperor. It made unparalleled existences and ordinary final realm cultivators tremble in fear. Many cultivators worshipped this monarch Feishue. For instance, the Summer Wind Ancient Nation had a good relationship with monarch Feishue, allowing them to obtain many benefits. Currently, their reputation was even stronger than the Myriad Realms Ancient Nation. Do you understand now? I'll send you to the Illusion Demon Hall. As for the Burning Heart God Tree, don't think about it temporarily. Wait until that monarch Feishue leaves. By then you will have a chance. The black-robed old man persuaded. Teacher, you said that monarch Feishue is in our Fan Clan Magic Mountain? I have been living here, yet I did not know about it. The young man was incredibly excited. Teacher, Can I pay a visit to him? When he was young, he had grown up listening to the stories of this monarch Feishue. Pay a visit? Monarch Feishue is currently meditating and cultivating. Do you think we can disturb him? The black-robed old man snorted. Old ancestor has already ordered us not to disturb him. Oh. The young man felt his heart itching when he heard that. Teacher, can you tell me where is the burning heart god tree? The young man asked. The black-robed old man shook his head with a smile. He pointed in a direction. Over there. The young man looked afar. His eyes were filled with excitement and expectation. Over there, over at the Fan Clan Magic Mountain, the #1 expert in Realm Heart Great Land, Monarch Feishue, was currently cultivating there. In reality, the majority of Cosmos gods knew that Monarch Feishue had a close relationship with the Summer Wind Ancient Nation. For instance, Monarch Feishue and Emperor Summer would frequently discuss the Tao together. The two would occasionally drink wine together, and would occasionally appear at a certain location in Realm Heart Great Land to spar. The two of them were final realm experts in the Tao of Void. Furthermore, both of them had obtained a supreme-graded secret impartation. Hence, it was of great help to the other when they interacted. For instance, the relationship between Monarch Feishue and Ancestor Fan had long been known. Ancestor Fan had even deliberately spread the news to let all Cosmos gods know that Monarch Feishue had an avatar cultivating on the Fan Clan Magic Mountain. This made many Cosmos gods feel envious and jealous because they desired to interact with this Monarch Feishue. Because Monarch Feishue was not only powerful, his influence in Broken Teeth Mountain range was huge, and he had many treasures and opportunities. Did they not see how Emperor Summer, Ancestor Fan, Paragon Master Bewitching Sword, and Emperor Tsong benefiting from this? Did they not see how Southern Cloud King could walk unhindered? Did they not see how Old Mother Ying Shan had broken through to the Cosmos God realm? Who, under the burning heart god tree, a white-robed Dongbua Shui Ying sat cross-legged. The violet leaves were drifting down with the wind. He opened his eyes. They were filled with a strand of regret. I still haven't succeeded. Dongbua Shui Ying muttered to himself. That time when I observed the thousand-eyed water droplet was too short. If I could comprehend it thoroughly, I might have created the third Tao of Mirage and Illusory Realm killing technique. Such a long period. He had already explored the sky-floating islands with the mysterious eyes in Broken Teeth Mountain range. He had also memorized the structure of the illusory realm world within those mysterious eyes. That time, he finally comprehended the first Tao of Mirage and Illusory Realm killing technique according to the structure of the illusory realm world of the gray eyes, resplendent illusory realm. Because the golden eyes had scoured through the entire place, 80 billion years after he killed Undying Underworld Emperor, he created the second Tao of Mirage and Illusory Realm killing technique, Illusory Realm killing intent. Just as I expected, these two killing techniques can't be used against a single enemy at the same time. Dongbua Shui Ying shook his head. The resplendent illusory realm was used to lure the enemy into falling into oblivion. The illusory realm killing intent was used to destroy the soul of the enemy. Even if it could not kill the enemy, it would injure them. The two were entirely different illusory realms. The soul of the enemy could only enter the same illusory realm at the same time. Unless my illusory realm could contain both resplendent and killing intent at the same time. But that is too difficult. Dongbua Shui Ying wanted to see the thousand-eyed water droplet again. Because the structure of the thousand-eyed water droplet was a vast thousand-eyed world. Great Emperor North River. When Dongbua Shui Ying thought of this, he felt slightly unwilling. If he had the thousand-eyed water droplet, he might have created the third killing technique. The third killing technique was a perfect fusion of the previous two killing techniques. He might even be able to reach that final realm in the Tao of Mirage and Illusory Realm. Of course, it might not be that easy to reach the final realm. He had to overcome many obstacles. But at least by creating it, his understanding of the Tao of Mirage and Illusory Realm would deepen by another level. But all of this was destroyed. This great Emperor North River has entered the Snake Tooth Corridor and never returned. Dongbua Shui Ying thought, Is he afraid of me taking revenge? That is why he is staying inside? As long as the energy within the thousand-eyed water droplet is exhausted, he would have to come out. Otherwise, he would never come out. Even if he came out, the thousand-eyed water droplet would most likely dissipate because of the energy within it being exhausted. Thousand-eyed water droplet. During these years, Dongbo Shui-ing had visited many sky-floating islands, yet he had never obtained a single thousand-eyed water droplet or snake-tooth bead. In history, it was hard to obtain these two supreme treasures. Most of them were obtained by the 5 great supremes. Previously at the Black Leaf Lake, there was only a suppression directed at the soul. There were no other dangers. That was why he could obtain a thousand-eyed water droplet. Am I not fated to obtain another thousand-eyed water droplet? Forget it. Even if I don't, I can still create one. Perhaps this way, I can deepen my understanding of the Tao of Mirage and Illusory Realm. Dongbo Shui-ing could only console himself. He calmed himself down and continued cultivating, pondering over how to fuse the 2 killing techniques of the Tao of Mirage and Illusory Realm. Chapter 1271. Feishue City, Monarch Residence. Under a pavilion by the lake, Dongbo Shui-ing and Emperor Summer were seated opposite each other. The two were currently discussing about Tao. The chaotic origin refinement body is something I created. Younger brother Feishue, you must believe me. Emperor Summer anxiously said, using the chaotic origin dimension as the mother to nurture and condense a fleshy body, I believe the moment it is formed, it would become a fleshy body at the chaotic origin life form level. This Tao is the true Tao. We have tried many times. Furthermore, I feel that if we want to take a single step from the final realm to directly possess a fleshy body at the chaotic origin level, or even become a chaotic origin life form, isn't it too easy to become a chaotic origin? Dongbo Shui-ing added, I feel that it isn't that easy to break through using force. I don't think it is easy. Using the chaotic origin dimension as the mother to nurture and condense a fleshy body is inherently difficult. I hope that brother Feishue can help me. The two of us can study this Tao together. Emperor Summer said, using the dimension as the mother, this first step is something I can't take. Dongbo Shui-ing shook his head. Emperor Summer, you and I will walk our own path. Let's see who can ultimately create the true 3rd level of the chaotic origin refinement body. Emperor Summer could not help but shake his head when he heard that. During these 200 billion years, the two of them frequently discussed about Tao. What they talked about the most was the 3rd level of the chaotic origin refinement body in the chaotic origin Tao scroll. This cultivation technique was originally created by Emperor Summer. It's a pity that Emperor Summer had only created the first 2 levels of the chaotic origin refinement body. Dongbo Shui-ing had a supreme secret impartation, chaotic origin 7 strikes. He had many unique techniques to fuse the Tao of void and chaotic origin energy. Hence, he had already perfected the original foundation of Emperor Summer. After reaching that final realm, he even wanted to create the 3rd level of the chaotic origin refinement body. Furthermore, ever since he created his soul-killing technique, his soul had influenced his fleshy body. This gave him some direction to improve his fleshy body. The two of them had gained a lot from their exchange. Because Emperor Summer had a supreme secret impartation that was also related to the Tao of Void, Void Blossom. Dongbo Shui-ying's supreme secret impartation was the chaotic origin 7 strikes. It was a perfect match with the chaotic origin weapon Azure River Spear. The two of them had different supreme secret impartations. Moreover, neither of them could leak their supreme secret impartations, so they could only clash with each other in terms of their train of thought. They communicated for a long time. The two of them were still fine at the start. They had even created the initial version of the 3rd level of its chaotic origin refinement body. This was an imperfect version. Even if it was incomplete, it still allowed their fleshy bodies to reach a level comparable to Grand Perfection Kings. In other words, just by relying on their fleshy bodies, they had the strength of unparalleled existences like Eternal Night Primogenite. Because they had created the 1st edition, The two of them were full of fighting spirit and saw the hope of jumping out of the cage. The two of them often communicated and studied together. However, gradually, there were still disagreements. And the divergence was getting bigger and bigger. How difficult is this path? If I walk alone, how will I be able to break through it? If the two of us work together, you and I might be able to break through together. Emperor Summer sighed. He discovered that Dongwu Shui Ying's talent was incredibly high. He was able to find many breakthroughs in the body cultivation aspect. If he, Emperor Summer, were to explore by himself, even though he had the supreme secret impartation Void Flower Blossom, he could achieve the first step of using the chaotic origin dimension as the womb. But condensing a fleshy body was the hardest step. He did not have the confidence to do so. He wanted to pull Dongwu Shui Ying along with him on this path. But Dongwu Shui Ying clearly wanted to walk on a path he was confident of. We have sufficient time to walk our own paths. If I fail in the future, I'll try the path you, Emperor Summer, pointed out. Dongwu Shui Ying chuckled. His talent in body cultivation was not that high. It was only after he created the Tao of Mirage and illusory realm killing technique that his soul underwent a qualitative change that allowed his fleshy body to evolve. His soul was strong. It also influenced his fleshy body. And these influences allowed Dongwu Shui Ying to see the direction he could take to break through and perfect it. The two of them temporarily put down their differences. They continued discussing about their understanding of the third level of the chaotic origin refinement body. Suddenly, Dongwu Shui Ying stopped. He looked afar. What is it? Emperor Summer felt puzzled. It was not convenient for him to forcefully investigate within Feishue City. A guest has arrived. Dongwu Shui Ying chuckled. A figure condensed in the distance. It was a tall and thin male in white robes. That tall and thin male descended. He bowed respectfully. Jia Fu greets Monarch Feishue. You are? Dongwu Shui Ying asked. He could recognize with a glance that this was an expert native of Broken Teeth Mountain Range. But he did not know who he was. After all, he was just an initial emperor. There were many of them in Broken Teeth Mountain Range, and he was not famous. I am an attendant under Supreme Vast Ancient. The tall and thin male chuckled. I am here under the orders of Supreme Vast Ancient to invite Monarch. Supreme Vast Ancient? Dongwu Shui Ying was startled. I wonder what matter Supreme Vast Ancient has for me? This I do not know. It is Supreme Vast Ancient who ordered me to invite Monarch. The tall and thin male said. Supreme Vast Ancient wishes to see you. Why haven't you gone yet? The Xia Emperor laughed. Dongwu Shui Ying nodded. He immediately created a clone, which said to the tall and thin male, Let's go. Let's go see the autarch. He immediately used the Great World Break teleportation technique and arrived at the borders of the vast ancient world. Dongwu Shui Ying and the tall and thin male, Jia Fu, appeared. Jia Fu glanced at the surroundings, then said, Monarch Feishue, please follow me. Supreme Vast Ancient. Dongwu Shui Ying pondered to himself. He had interacted with the 5 autarchs over the past 200 billion years. This was because he really wanted to comprehend the thousand-eyed water droplet. Most likely, only the 5 autarchs possessed such a supreme treasure that could allow them to enter the snake-tooth corridor. Thus, he went to visit them one by one. The 5 autarchs gave him face, and at the very least, all of them met him. Unfortunately, when he mentioned that he wanted to comprehend the thousand-eyed water droplet without using up any of its energy, and even agreed to leave his clone in the autarch's cavernous state to do so, all 5 autarchs said that they did not have any thousand-eyed water droplets. When he had sought out Supreme Vast Ancient's temper had been quite good, and he had said, I do have a snake-tooth pearl, but I don't have a thousand-eyed water droplet. Throughout history, there have indeed been more snake-tooth pearls than thousand-eyed water droplets. To date, including the one you discovered, Monarch Feishue, there are only 3 publicly known thousand-eyed water droplets, and they have all been used up in the snake-tooth corridor. Swoosh! Swoosh! The vast ancient shrine. As one of the 2 autarchs of the natives, Supreme Vast Ancient's influence went without saying. This shrine was heavily guarded with many guards. But Dongbu Shuiying was unobstructed throughout his journey. Those guards and even god generals were relatively respectful towards Dongbu Shuiying. They knew that this monarch Feishueg was not only powerful in his soul technique, his close combat strength was also ranked in the front amongst god generals. Greetings, Supreme. Dongbu Shuiying saw an existence in the distance. He immediately bowed. Monarch Feishue is here. Supreme Vast Ancient sat there looking at the vast void. He pointed to a stone stool by the side. Come, sit. Dongbu Shuiying walked over and sat down. At this moment, Supreme Vast Ancient had completely concealed his aura. His expression was simple and cold. Being able to conceal his aura meant that he was very polite. Otherwise, if he released his aura, it would be like an incomparably horrifying fireball. Dongbu Shuiying would feel uncomfortable even with his current strength. After all, even though his fleshy body had a breakthrough, allowing him to reach the initial version of the third level of chaotic origin refinement body, he was merely at grand perfection king realm. I wonder why Supreme is looking for me? Dongbu Shuiying asked. Because he no longer had to rush to the sky-floating islands. Usually, he would not leave any avatars in the Broken Tooth Mountain range. If there was anything, he could just ask his subordinates to look for him in Feishue City. I've mentioned before that I have a snake tooth bead. Supreme Vast Ancient said. Yes. Dongbu Shuiying nodded. Supreme Vast Ancient flipped his hand, causing two smooth and round black beads to appear in his palm. These two black beads were incomparably deep and serene. It would attract the gaze of others into it. The more one looked at it, the more one would feel that these black beads were like a vast world that was devouring everything. Dongbu Shuiying was naturally able to stabilize his heart with his current strength. But he was still startled. He could not help but ask, 2 snake tooth beads? Right too. Supreme Vast Ancient nodded. I originally had 1 bead. I wasn't in a rush to visit the snake tooth corridor since I've been there several times before. I wanted to make sufficient preparations before going again. However, I didn't expect that just a few days ago, when I was exploring some sky-floating islands, I would come across another snake tooth bead. Congratulations, Supreme Vast Ancient. Dongbu Shuiying said. Some sky-floating islands were indeed filled with great dangers that he could not enter, but Supreme Vast Ancient had a chance to do so. Snake tooth beads and thousand-eyed water droplets were generally located in extremely dangerous places. I can give you one of these snake tooth beads. Supreme Vast Ancient looked at Dongbu Shuiying. You're giving me such a supreme treasure for no reason at all? Dongbu Shuiying smiled as he looked at the Supreme Vast Ancient, but in his heart, he began to feel nervous. Who wouldn't want to enter the snake tooth corridor? Supreme Vast Ancient continued, you must enter the snake tooth corridor with me. Once inside, you must listen to all of my instructions. Supreme Vast Ancient, please tell me what I need to do. Dongbu Shuiying wasn't angry at all. It would be strange if Supreme Vast Ancient didn't have strict requirements for giving him such a supreme treasure. But no matter what, entering the legendary forbidden area of the Snake Tooth Corridor was a cause for celebration. Chapter 1272. Emperor Feishue, what you need to do is very simple, Autarch Vast Ancient said. Follow me into the Snake Tooth Corridor. After that, you must listen to my instructions. You cannot act on your own. But don't worry, the Snake Tooth Corridor is filled with many dangerous areas that require the protection of the Snake Tooth Pearls. Once the energy within the Snake Tooth Pearls is used up to a certain point, I'll have to return. If I can't return to the Broken Teeth Mountains before the pearls run out of energy, I won't be able to return. Dongbu Shuiying understood this. The Snake Tooth Corridor was incredibly dangerous, especially the whirlpools at the entrance and exit. There was no way to resist them on one's own. One had to rely on the power of the Snake Tooth Pearls or the thousand-eyed water droplets. One had to rely on the power of the Snake Tooth Pearls to enter and exit. If the Snake Tooth Pearls ran out of energy on the way out, they would probably lose their lives to the whirlpools of the corridor. That's why I have to return when the Snake Tooth Pearls have roughly 30% of their energy remaining. Autarch Vast Ancient smiled as he looked at Dongbu Shuiying. You, however, are different. You have many clones, and you can continue to roam the snake-tooth corridors until the snake-tooth pearls run out of energy. Even if your clone doesn't return, it won't affect you, right? Dongwu Shui-ing nodded. Before I return, you have to listen to my instructions. Once I return, you will be free to roam the corridors, Autarch Vast Ancient said. Do you agree to my request? The Autarch is willing to gift me a supreme treasure like the snake-tooth pearls in exchange for sending a clone to help me. To me, the more the better. Dongwu Shui-ing laughed loudly. Autarch Vast Ancient instantly revealed a smile. He felt that Emperor Feishue probably wouldn't refuse, but he was also afraid that Feishue would be too arrogant and unwilling to listen to orders. How many of my clones do I need to enter? Dongwu Shui-ing asked. A single clone is enough, Autarch Vast Ancient explained. The snake-tooth pearls can only protect a single clone. Understood. Dongwu Shui-ing nodded. He had countless clones. It was a minor matter if one of his clones dissipated in the snake-tooth corridors. Being able to go in for a trip was exactly what he wished for. Before gifting the snake-tooth bead to Imperial Monarch Feishue, please swear an oath, Imperial Monarch Feishue. Autarch Vast Ancient said. He did not dare to easily trust Dongwu Shui-ing for such a supreme treasure. All right. Dongwu Shui-ing was straightforward and immediately swore an oath. Autarch Vast Ancient was in a good mood as well. He knew that cultivators still attached great importance to oaths. Autarch Vast Ancient had long since made his preparations, while Dongwu Shui-ing had merely sent a clone. There was no need for him to make any preparations at all. On the same day, the two of them set off for the snake-tooth corridor. Boom, boom, boom. The two of them directly arrived near that terrifying black maelstrom in the snake-tooth corridor. The tearing force of the maelstrom was too strong. The rumbling and ripples it produced made Dongwu Shui-ing's heart tremble slightly. Just the sound alone was not enough, but the unseen ripples formed by the maelstrom were able to penetrate through the fleshy body and soul, causing fear to rise in Dongwu Shui-ing's heart. Looking up at that incomparably towering snake head that was the size of the territory of Southern Cloud Nation, a terrifying chaotic origin life form with strength close to the level of Yuan. Even if it has died for an unknown period of time, its remnant might is still so unfathomable. Terrifying, truly terrifying. Furthermore, the head of an ordinary snake would only occupy a small portion of its body. Even if this chaotic origin lifeform's body proportions are different from ordinary snakes, the proportion of its body occupied by the snake head should still be small. If the snake head is so huge, how big would its body be? The snake head was as big as the Southern Cloud Nation. How long would its body be? Even though the Summer Wind Ancient Nation seemed huge, much bigger than the Southern Cloud Nation, that was in terms of surface area. In terms of the length of the nation, it was merely a few times bigger. The length of the body of this snake was likely much longer than the territory of the Summer Wind Ancient Nation. Who is that? Supreme Vast Ancient? Monarch Feishue? There were also observers arranged by the 5 great supremes around the snake-tooth corridor. They soon discovered Dongwu Shui-ing and Supreme Vast Ancient. One was a supreme, and the other was the famous Monarch Feishue. These observers naturally did not dare to disturb them. Every time I look at it from a close distance, it feels incomparably shocking. Supreme Vast Ancient said, this innate chaotic origin life form has an unfathomably huge body. As for Yuan and other chaotic origin experts, they started off weak and small. Their bodies might be comparable to us, yet they are so strong that they are much stronger than this terrifying chaotic origin life form in front of us. Just thinking about it makes me feel envious. Dongwu Shui-ing nodded. Go, let us enter. Supreme Vast Ancient said, don't worry. As we get closer to the snake-tooth corridor, the energy within the snake-tooth bead will naturally be activated. So. The two of them rapidly flew towards the black maelstrom. As they flew closer, Dongwu Shui-ing felt the snake-tooth bead in his bosom causing some unique changes. At that moment, the snake-tooth bead began emitting a faint black light. This black light revolved around the surface of Dongwu Shui-ing's body. and the surface of Supreme Vast Ancient's body was similarly covered by a faint black light. They have entered. Supreme Vast Ancient and Monarch Feishue have both entered the snake-tooth corridor. The observers watching from afar were incredibly startled. It was fine for Supreme Vast Ancient to enter, but even Monarch Feishue had entered the snake-tooth corridor? The observers sent by the other 4 Supremes immediately transmitted the news to the Supremes of the various clans. The news spread. Many Supremes received the news. They have all entered. Monarch Feishue has also entered the snake-tooth corridor? Since they entered together, it seems Supreme Vast Ancient has given Monarch Feishue a token of entry. Is Supreme Vast Ancient planning to investigate the consciousness region this time? Supreme Thunder Firmament could not help but frown when he received the news. This vast ancient fellow. He actually has 2 supreme treasures of entry. His luck is truly amazing. The other 4 Supremes were all envious. The snake-tooth pearl and the thousand-eyed water droplet were both very difficult to obtain. Obtaining one was one thing, but obtaining 2 was simply too difficult. Supreme Vast Ancient had a snake-tooth pearl to begin with. He had just wanted to make ample preparations before entering. Who would have thought that during this period of time, Dongbu Shui-ing would first rise to prominence, and then Supreme Vast Ancient would be lucky enough to obtain a snake-tooth pearl? And so, this trip was made possible. The other Supremes could only feel envious. Rumble, explosions rang out incessantly. As soon as they flew into the vortex of darkness, they were immediately torn apart, unable to control their bodies. All they could do was be swept into the vortex. Fortunately, their bodies were protected by the black light. Although this black light seemed thin, no matter how the outside world tore at it, it was unable to break through. However, Dongbu Shui-ing could sense that the vast energy contained within the snake-tooth pearl was slowly being consumed. Swoosh! Supreme Vast Ancient and Dongbu Shui-ing could only follow the devouring force and follow the flow. They rapidly fell into the snake-tooth corridor. As they advanced within the vortex, even space was distorted and shattered. Their speed was incredibly fast. But the interior of this snake's bloody mouth was simply too huge. After all, the entire snake-tooth head was comparable to the territory of the Southern Cloud Nation. Just by being swept along, it lasted for an hour before the tearing force of the vortex began decreasing. Very soon, both Supreme Vast Ancient and Dongbu Shui-ing regained control of their bodies. Are we currently in the mouth of a snake? Dongbu Shui-ing looked around. With a glance, he saw an enormous snake tooth in the distance. The snake tooth was emitting a terrifying aura. Don't stay here for too long. The wind here is exhausting the energy of the snake-tooth pearl. Supreme Vast Ancient urged, continue forward. Dongbu Shui-ing nodded. Actually, as the power of the vortex decreased, the consumption of the snake-tooth pearl was much lower. But clearly, Supreme Vast Ancient cared about every bit of energy. So, Supreme Vast Ancient brought Dongbu Shui-ing along as they flew at high speed into the mouth of the snake. They had to fly for a long time before they could fly past an enormous snake tooth. This tooth was taller than the mountains in Realm Heart Great Land. Where are we going? Dongbu Shui-ing asked. You just have to follow me. You'll know when we reach there. Supreme Vast Ancient chuckled. He was clearly familiar with this place. He had been here several times before. Along the way, he was not willing to waste any energy. He brought Dongbu Shui-ing along at high speed. Chapter 1273. Every snake tooth was as tall as a towering mountain. They emitted an endless austere aura that instilled fear in Dongbu Shui-ing's heart. This was normal too. The snake teeth were originally the weapons these terrifying chaotic origin life forms used against their enemies. Why was the Broken Teeth mountain range named Broken Teeth? It was because there was a broken tooth in this vast mountain range. That was also the tallest mountain peak in Realm Heart Great Land. This Broken Tooth mountain peak was rumored to have injured that tooth of Yuan. That was why Yuan chose to do so. Dongbu Shui-ing discovered the transformation too. Under the lead of Supreme Vast Ancient, he flew at high speed. They had already passed by 8 snake teeth. On the left, there were 2 rows of snake teeth. On the right, there were also 2 rows of snake teeth. In other words, there were a total of 4 rows of snake teeth in the mouth of this snake. Currently, only 8 teeth had flown past them. One could see how slow they were. The first 8 teeth are emitting a dark aura that makes others palpitate. And this snake tooth in front of me is giving off an endless feeling of sharpness. Dongwu Shui-ing watched with bewilderment. Looking afar, there was a towering huge tooth. Further ahead, there was another tooth with a sharper shape. The aura it emitted was entirely different too. As they flew, Dongwu Shui-ing discovered that the aura of every 8 teeth would change once. Even the shape of some teeth would change. After flying for half a day, he saw more than 80 snake teeth. That is, Dongwu Shui-ing's eyes brightened. There was a new towering black snake tooth that appeared in the distance. Yet there were many void cracks around it. Tao of void? He sensed it. This newly appeared snake tooth contained the fundamental usage of the Tao of void. Furthermore, it was at a higher level. For a moment, Dongwu Shui-ing felt an itch in his heart. He wanted to go closer and explore. Monarch Fei Shue, I know you have reached the final realm in the Tao of void. The nearby autarch Vast Ancient glanced off into the distance as well. He sent mentally, these 8 snake fangs do indeed contain many mysteries of the Tao of void, as well as many opportunities within them. However, entering them will require the energy of the snake tooth pearls. You'd better follow me obediently. It won't be too late for you to come back after I return. Don't worry. Since we have an agreement and I have sworn an oath, I will not go back on my word, Dongwu Shui-ing said. It's good that you understand. Supreme Vast Ancient didn't say anything else. Actually, he understood what the opportunities within Snake Tooth Corridor signified for a cultivator. That was why he intentionally warned them. He could not afford to waste his energy for Dongwu Shui-ing. 8 void snake fangs. Really, as Dongwu Shui-ing flew, the more he looked, the more tempted he felt. In fact, even from afar, he could vaguely sense something. Once I'm done accompanying autarch Vast Ancient, I'll definitely come back to investigate this place. So. The 2 of them continued flying. Not counting the snake fangs that they could not see clearly in the dark vortex, after flying past a total of 120 snake fangs, Dongwu Shui-ing and the others finally reached a fork in the road. A fork continued forward, and another fork led upwards. Follow this way. The corridor was very wide. It was growing calmer and calmer. Every so often, a wild wind would blow past them, causing the power of the snake tooth pearls to be slightly depleted. Autarch Vast Ancient and Dongwu Shui-ing continued to fly upwards, but Dongwu Shui-ing had a pensive look on his face. He immediately asked, Autarch, when we entered, the power of that dark vortex was simply too terrifying. We were unable to control our bodies, much less fly. All we could do was follow it in. How are we supposed to leave, then? There's no way we can go against the vortex and leave, right? Of course there's no way we can go against the vortex. The vortex is the entrance. We enter through the serpent's mouth. The exit is through the nostrils of the serpent, autarch Vast Ancient said with a laugh. The serpent's mouth forms a vortex that sucks in air, while its nostrils emit air outwards. It's just that the power of the vortex is obscured by it. So that's how it is. Dongwu Shui-ing nodded. To Emperor Fei Shue, there's probably no need for him to leave at all. Autarch Vast Ancient laughed. That is, unless he obtains some sort of unique treasure that he wishes to bring out. The corridors were formed by the serpent's head, and there were many forked paths along the way. But of course, many of the nodes were very stable. In fact, there were some places that weren't affected by the winds at all. The power of the snake tooth pearls wouldn't be depleted at all. As the corridor grew narrower and narrower, Dongwu Shui-ing couldn't help but ask, Where are we going? We're almost there. Autarch Vast Ancient smiled. You'll know soon enough. Don't be too surprised. Surprised? Dongwu Shui-ing had no choice but to suppress his curiosity. Although the corridor was growing narrower and narrower, It was still more than 100 million kilometers wide. Still, compared to the size of the serpent's head, it was quite thin. In front of them was an enormous blood-colored membrane that blocked their path. Although it was called a blood-colored membrane, it was actually filled with countless streams of light that flowed through it like an enormous waterfall of blood. Let's go through it. Tark Vast Ancient was rather excited. Swoosh! The two charged straight through the blood-colored membrane. The blood-colored membrane did not obstruct them at all. Instead, a unique energy swept through their bodies. It was very unique. The blood-colored membrane was also very thick. They flew for a few breaths of time before they completely penetrated through it. We're here. Supreme Vast Ancient chuckled as he stopped. Ying looked at the scene in front of him in shock. It was a vast space. Within this space, there were many veins that were emitting warm light. These veins intersected with each other. There were also several hundred huge light lumps scattered within this space. Every light lump was connected by a vein. Even though the light lumps were huge, there were still differences in size between them. Where is this? Ying felt puzzled. According to the distance they flew, he deduced, is this the snake brain? The snake brain is much bigger than this space. More accurately speaking, this should be the consciousness of this terrifying chaotic origin life form. Supreme Vast Ancient said. Consciousness? Ying was startled. The consciousness of a life form would always be the most unique. Go, let us first head to the first light lumps. Supreme Vast Ancient was filled with anticipation. He brought Ying along as they continued flying. The veins in the consciousness were even thinner. Even though the two of them were flying through the thickest vein, it was merely 500,000 kilometers wide. The veins had intersecting nodes too. But at the nodes, it was extremely quiet. There was no invasion from the black wind. That's right, within the consciousness, there were still black winds howling and invading the bodies of Ying and the others. After flying for a moment, only then did Tark Vast Ancient stop at a certain node. He pointed at a ball of light in front of him. I'll wait for you here. Continue forward. Enter that ball of light. I can sense that ball of light calling out to me, drawing me in. But every light lump in the consciousness of the snake has a suppressive force on the soul. Some are strong and some are weak. I can't enter this light lump in front of me. Its level of suppression is comparable to the black leaf lake. I believe you should be able to enter. Oh? Ying was enlightened. The light lump in the consciousness had a suppressive force on the soul? No wonder the other party asked him to come. Remember what you said in the oath. Listen to my orders. Supreme Vast Ancient said, after you enter, bring out everything you can bring out. If you hide anything or don't do your best to bring it out, you will be violating the oath. Supreme Vast Ancient reminded him again. The reason why he gave a snake tooth bead to Ying was for the other party to help him. All right. Supreme can be rest assured. By then, you can search my body after I come out. Ying chuckled. What a joke. How could some external objects make him violate the oath? Even a chaotic origin weapon was not qualified to make him violate the oath. After all, the moment he violated the oath, his cultivation path would most likely be severed. Boo! Ying flew along the thinner meridian pathway towards the light ball in front of him. Hoo-hoo! The black wind was also howling. As it blew on his body, a thin layer of black light easily resisted against it. It's just that the energy in the snake tooth bead was being consumed at an extremely slow pace. When he was just 500,000 kilometers away, he could already feel a suppressive force on his soul. As he got closer, this suppressive force on his soul rapidly increased. I do want to see what exactly is within this light lump. Ying curiously flew over. Chapter 1274. The pressure is quite strong. Ying advanced through the passageway, the sphere of light growing larger and larger in his field of vision. The pressure emanating from it caused even Ying to feel quite uncomfortable. Autark vast ancients stood at the node of the passageway, staring nervously at it. I have to go in. I have to go in. Of the many spheres of light in my sea of consciousness, this one is calling out to me the loudest. He had paid the price of a snake-tooth pearl to allow Dongwu Shuiying to enter, and this sphere of light was his primary target. I'm in. A look of delight appeared on Autark vast ancient's face. Whoosh. Dongwu Shuiying charged headfirst into the enormous sphere of light, entering it. This is a sphere of light? A look of surprise appeared on Dongwu Shuiying's face. This sphere of light was billions of kilometers in size, and within it floated a series of solidified fragments of the world. There were 7 of them, each of them resembling enormous pieces of paper, each of which contained a terrifying source of heat. Each of the 7 fragments contained a dazzling, eye-catching object. There was a black dagger. There was a world fragment with the black dagger at the center. There was also a blazing ball of deep blue flame, with the blue flame at the center. Which one should I go to? Dongwu Shuiying could sense that these fragments were filled with danger. This one with the black dagger? Dongwu Shuiying instantly made up his mind. This was the only one of the 7 fragments that had a weapon at the center of it. Swoosh! Dongwu Shuiying flew straight towards the world fragment. As he flew closer, the enormous paper-like world fragment quickly sucked him into it. I'm in. Dongwu Shuiying felt his vision blur as he found himself standing atop an enormous wasteland. The wasteland was filled with countless black-armored soldiers, and in the very center of the wasteland was a towering throne. Seated atop the throne was a black-armored, caped figure who was toying with a black dagger in his hands. His gaze was fixed on Dongwu Shuiying from afar, causing Dongwu Shuiying to feel a stifling pressure. Kill. All of the black-armored soldiers were originally standing still like statues, but when Dongwu Shuiying descended, all of them turned to look at Dongwu Shuiying. Like a tidal wave, the black-armored soldiers all turned into streams of light and attacked. The light rays shrouded the sky, surrounding Dongwu Shuiying from all directions. Destroy! Standing on the desolate plains, facing countless black-armored soldiers, Dongwu Shuiying instantly unleashed a mirage and illusory realm killer move. Bang! The illusion instantly enveloped every corner of the world fragment, including the throne. The illusory realm attacked the black-armored soldiers one by one, and the effect of this move was extremely good. Countless black-armored soldiers dissipated like bubbles, and in a short period of time, other than Dongwu Shuiying, there were only 13 figures left. Apart from the black-armored and cloaked figure sitting on the throne, there were 12 taller black-armored generals who were still in good condition. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. These 12 were able to resist the illusions and were clearly much stronger. Bang, bang, bang. All of them attacked with daggers, and their attacks were strange and unfathomable, even surpassing Dongwu Shuiying's understanding. His defensive methods were completely useless. Those daggers were like phantoms that pierced through his defenses and directly attacked his body. However, the black light protecting his body tenaciously blocked these attacks. I'm afraid that even if a sovereign came, he would not be able to resist them with his own strength. Dongwu Shuiying's expression changed slightly. Right at this moment, Dongwu Shuiying was shocked to discover that countless black-armored soldiers had appeared on the desolate plains far away. They appeared again after being destroyed? Dongwu Shuiying quickly used his movement technique. The movement techniques of Void Dao experts were also incredible. The attacks of the 12 black-armored generals were clearly strange and powerful, but their movement techniques were very clumsy. Dongwu Shuiying executed his illusions, sweeping through the countless black-armored soldiers. At the same time, he used his movement technique to pounce towards the black-armored figure on the throne. After all, his target was the black dagger that the black-armored figure was playing with. That dagger was emitting a majestic energy, and it should be the origin of this world fragment. South, the black-armored soldiers dissipated like bubbles, and were soon reborn. And those black-armored generals were constantly being shaken off by Dongwu Shuiying. Dongwu Shuiying relied on the black light protecting his body to forcefully block them. Hand it over. Dongwu Shuiying charged towards the throne. His figure was like a specter as a myriad of figures appeared. Every figure was real, just that they existed on a different plane of space. The myriad of figures pounced towards the throne at the same time. The black-armored figure played with the dagger. Finally, he laughed coldly as he brandished the black dagger in his hand. Selah, a dagger slashed across Dongwu Shui-ing. Boom! Dongwu Shui-ing only felt his consciousness rumble. By the time he woke up, he discovered that his body was already outside the world fragment. That strike had blasted him out. I'm out? Dongwu Shui-ing sensed for a moment, and his expression changed. That strike actually consumed so much of my snake-tooth bead's energy? Although that strike with the dagger had saved his life by relying on the black light protecting his body, it had consumed an enormous amount of energy. It was roughly 1% of the snake-tooth bead's energy. He looked at the world fragment in front of him. The world fragment was still a blur. The only thing he could see was the most dazzling source of the world fragment, that black dagger. As for those soldiers, generals, and black-armored figures, they could not be seen clearly from the outside world. What's going on with those soldiers? Why are they still reborn after being killed so many times? That black-armored figure is also ridiculously strong. Dongwu Shui-ing muttered to himself. But before he entered, Supreme Vast Ancient had reminded him that anything could happen within the world of light in his sea of consciousness. As long as he, Dongwu Shui-ing, could successfully bring the item out, it would be a huge success. Let's enter again. Dongwu Shui-ing attempted to enter the world fragment of the black dagger once more. Rumble. After entering the world fragment, he once more descended upon the desolate plains. What appeared before him was still the same countless black-armored soldiers, as well as the black-armored figure who was fiddling with the black dagger on the distant mountain throne. It was as though nothing had changed. The gazes of all the figures landed on Dongwu Shui-ing. Clearly, they were about to launch another attack. Let's go. Dongwu Shui-ing chose to give up without hesitation. Given his attainments in the Tao of space, he was able to easily leave this world fragment. The world fragment of the black dagger is too dangerous. Dongwu Shui-ing glanced at the other 6 world fragments. His gaze landed on one of the enormous world fragments. The source of this world fragment was a fiery red feather. Dongwu Shui-ing guessed that it would be relatively easier. He made his decision based purely on instinct. South, he directly flew towards the world fragment of the fiery feather and was once again absorbed into it. This was also a world fragment. The borders of the world were filled with nothingness, and in the center of the world was a gigantic tree. At the top of the tree floated a fiery red feather, and 3 birds were circling around it. On top of the gigantic tree, there were also a large number of birds resting. Similarly, the moment Dongwu Shui-ing entered the world fragment, all the birds turned their heads to look at Dongwu Shui-ing. Their eyes were filled with savagery and rage. In an instant, an ear-piercing screech rang out. Formless ripples spread out, causing the black radiance on the surface of Dongwu Shui-ing's body to tremble slightly. At the same time, the energy of the snake-tooth bead was also being depleted. Destroy. Shui-ing immediately unleashed his mirage and illusory realm, directly enveloping this broken world. At that moment, the birds on that huge tree all dissipated with a huge sound under the illusory realm, leaving behind only the 3 birds that were clearly stronger than the other 3 flying around the fiery red feathers. There are only 3 birds left, and there's no one controlling this feather? From the looks of it, it seems to be slightly easier than the black dagger's world fragment. Dongwu Shui-ing muttered to himself. At the very least, there were a total of 13 existences in that world fragment that could still exist under his illusory realm. This world fragment seemed to be slightly weaker. Chapter 1275. Only 3 flying beasts circling around the fiery red feather were left. The 3 flying beasts stopped and stared at Dongwu Shui-ing. Among them, the largest green flying beast let out an ear-piercing screech. Screech, ripples that could be seen with the naked eye swept out in the direction of Shui-ing in a fan shape. They were rapidly expanding, and in a blink of an eye, They had swept across about 20% to 30% of this world fragment. Naturally, Shuang was also affected. Even though the black protective light around his body isolated the ripples, just hearing the sound was unbearable. South, the other two flying beasts turned into streams of light and charged over. The large green flying beast stopped beside the fiery red feather to protect it. Peng peng. The flying speed of these two birds was unfathomably fast. In the blink of an eye, they arrived right in front of Shuang. Shuang did not have the time to evade before he was slapped by the birds and sent flying far away. At the same time, Ying's body immediately turned into a myriad of figures. He began executing his Tao of Void techniques to confuse his opponents. These two flying beasts continued to attack. They swept past all the figures and left none alive. Even though they were very fast, the thousands of figures were enough for Dongbo Ying to dodge and execute some confusing techniques. Their techniques are very powerful, but they seem very stupid? Dongbo Ying thought. Previously, his opponents in the Black Dagger World Fragment were also very stupid. If he did not go, they would be like statues. Their attacks were also the same. South Dongbo Ying rapidly flew towards the fiery red feather. Those two flying beasts seemed to have woken up. They flashed and returned to the fiery red feather. They worked together with the large green flying beast to surround the fiery red feather and defend against all enemies. Bang bang bang, both sides clashed. Dongbo Ying relied on the prowess of the black protective light and tried to snatch the fiery red feather time and time again. As for the three flying beasts, they only needed to move within a small area. Although their attacks were clumsy, they were able to disrupt Dongbo Ying's attacks. Try to confuse and divide them. Dongbo Ying's heart ached. Every time it collided with his snake-tooth bead, he would either split into many clones, teleport through the void, or even cast mirage and illusory realm killer moves at the same time. After doing this hundreds of times, his arm expanded and he managed to grab hold of that fiery red feather. The moment he grabbed the feather, the broken world suddenly began to distort. It was as if a stone had been thrown into a calm lake, causing it to tremble. Along with the tremors, the fragmented world suddenly disappeared completely without a sound. It was like a dream. He disappeared just like that, without a trace. Dongbo Ying stood in the void, holding the fiery red feather in his hand as he looked at the other 6 floating world fragments. The world fragment is gone just like that? Dongbo Ying mumbled to himself. What are those birds? Are they illusions? No, it can hurt me. Boom! Just as he was pondering, there was an invisible force within the light orb dimension that directly repelled Dongbo Ying's body, repelling him out. Dongbo Ying's body swayed as he stabilized himself and landed on the meridian pathway. I'm out. Monarch Feishue, hurry, come to me. Far away, at the node of the meridian pathway, Supreme Vast Ancient saw Dongbo Ying coming out. Especially when he saw the fiery red feather in Dongbo Ying's hand, his eyes instantly lit up. He was incomparably excited as he hurriedly called out. When Dongbo Ying heard it, he immediately flew towards Supreme Vast Ancient. Supreme, what's going on with this light orb dimension? Why is it so strange? Dongbo Ying was extremely puzzled. At the same time, he lowered his head to look at the fiery red feather in his hand. The temperature of this fiery red feather was extremely terrifying. Fortunately, his body was protected by the black light. Hurry, give it to me. Supreme Vast Ancient urged. Here. Dongbo Ying handed the feather over. Autark Vast Ancient accepted it, then carefully controlled the flow of the black light around his body to reveal his right hand. His right hand was completely unprotected, and he gently grabbed the fiery red feather. Crackle, crackle, crackle. Although the fiery red feather was extremely hot, Autark Vast Ancient's right hand was completely red and surrounded by flames. His right hand, however, was completely unharmed. Good, very good. What sort of majestic power is this? Supreme Vast Ancient was incomparably excited. The power of fire. Dongbo Ying watched from the side. He didn't train in the Tao of Fire, And although the auras of the black dagger and the fiery red feather in the light orb dimension were extremely mysterious and unfathomable, Dongbo Shui-ing could tell that they were most likely related to the Tao of Fire. Clearly, Supreme Vast Ancient was extremely excited and delighted. Supreme Vast Ancient waved his hand, placing the fiery red feather into his robes. He then smiled as he looked at Dongbo Shui-ing. Monarch Fei Shue, it's all thanks to you this time. If it were me, I wouldn't have been able to enter at all. Who would have thought that you would actually succeed in getting it? What exactly is the situation within the light orb dimension? Dongbo Shui-ing asked. Why is it so strange? I've faced some opponents who would be reborn after being destroyed. They might seem illusory, yet they are incredibly strong. I can't say for sure either. Supreme Vast Ancient chuckled, but you should know about the Sea of Consciousness. Usually, our souls would cultivate within the Sea of Consciousness. And this huge snake is an incomparably terrifying chaotic origin life form. Its Sea of Consciousness is even more unique and strange. It's just that it has already fallen and its soul dissipated. Nevertheless, this Sea of Consciousness is still incredibly mysterious. Sometimes, it would hide some tangible items. At other times, there might even be some memory fragments. Dongbo Shui-ing nodded. But as long as you get any item within the light orb dimension, you will be expelled out. You can't enter the same light orb dimension anymore. Supreme Vast Ancient said, I guess this should be a rule set by Yuan, forbidding us from taking more. Dongbo Shui-ing nodded. Previously in that dimension, he vaguely felt that the strangest thing was that black dagger. It's a pity that the difficulty of obtaining it was too high. After all, that black-armored caped figure had directly grabbed hold of the black dagger and easily forced him out of the world fragment with a single strike. But Supreme, Dongbo Shui-ing said, only after I entered did I discover that encountering danger within the light orb dimension would rapidly consume the energy of my snake-tooth bead. You are waiting at the node while I'm risking my life inside? I would consume the energy of my snake-tooth bead even faster. Who knows, by the time you return, the energy of my snake-tooth bead would have been completely consumed. That way, I wouldn't be able to explore the places I wish to go. Isn't this slightly unfair? The vow had been set. Even if Supreme Vast Ancient did not return, he would still have to listen to his orders. But since he could talk, he would naturally have to do so. Supreme Vast Ancient was startled. He laughed out loud. Rest assured, you have already helped me obtain an important item. As long as you succeed in obtaining 2 more items, you can move freely. There's no need to care about me anymore. He was already very satisfied with obtaining 1 item. If he could obtain 3, that would be worth celebrating. Moreover, Supreme Vast Ancient also knew that entering the light orb dimension was not easy, as it would suppress one's soul. It was even harder to obtain items within it. In fact, some of the light orb dimensions didn't have any items at all, just some memory fragments. Very well. Dongbo Shui-ing nodded, a smile on his face. After obtaining 3 items, the Supreme Vast Ancient would allow him to move freely. That meant that he would abide by the oath and listen to the instructions of Supreme Vast Ancient. Come, let's go to the next location. Supreme Vast Ancient smiled. He had already made arrangements. They would go to the light orb dimensions one by one in order of importance. The two flew along the glowing vein-like pathways, passing through one node after another. These vein-like pathways crisscrossed, leading to the various light orb dimensions. Just as the two were flying, I failed again. Damn it. A rather angry voice rang out as an azure-robed figure flew out of a light orb dimension, a cold look on his face. Clearly, he had come out empty-handed and was very disappointed. Dongbo Shui-ing and Supreme Vast Ancient, who had been flying, were both startled. They turned to look. The azure-robed figure seemed to sense something as well, and he turned to look as well. Their gazes intersected. Supreme Vast Ancient, Monarch Fei Shue? The azure-robed figure was stunned at this moment. Great Emperor North River? Dongbo Shui-ing was slightly stunned too. Chapter 1276. Even though Great Emperor North River had entered the forbidden ground snake-tooth corridor for more than 200 billion years, there were still many places within the snake-tooth corridor that were extremely safe. For instance, there were many nodes within the corridor that the violent gales could not reach. Or like the lightball dimension. If Dongbo Shuang did not take the initiative to enter the realm fragment, he would not suffer from any attacks. Staying in such a safe place would naturally not consume any of the power of the snake-tooth bead, thousand-eyed water droplet. He could cultivate for as long as he wanted. Supreme, vast, ancient, and imperial monarch Feishue? How could it be so coincidental for me to meet the two of them? Great Emperor North River felt his heart trembling. He even subconsciously thought that it was Monarch Feishue who came to take revenge. After all, seizing a precious treasure like the thousand-eyed water droplet was enough to make a great emperor realm expert fight to the death for it. But then he rejected the idea. Autarch, vast, ancient, and imperial Emperor Feishue needed two supreme treasures to enter. It would not be because of a little hatred. I didn't expect Sovereign Zun and Monarch Feishue to come to the Broken Teeth Mountain range as well. What a coincidence to bump into them. Great Emperor North River revealed a grin. He chuckled, Monarch Feishue, I am truly ashamed of what happened previously. I was too eager to seek for treasures. Moreover, you promised to give me the thousand-eyed water droplet in the end. I'm just getting it ahead of time. Even though I've destroyed one of your clones, you have countless clones, so you won't suffer any losses at all. Humph. Dongbo Shui Ying's expression sunk. He stared at the distant Great Emperor North River who stood on top of the channel emitting light. When Great Emperor North River saw this, he immediately added, I know that breaking the agreement has angered Monarch Feishue, and I've made amends too. As long as the Imperial Monarch doesn't mind, I have a supreme secret treasure here that I'm willing to give to the Imperial Monarch. Please don't be angry. Dongbo Shuang did not have any favorable impression of this Great Emperor North River. Back then, he had agreed to help because he didn't want to see a large number of native worlds go through a calamity. Great Emperor North River had already promised Shui Ying many benefits for helping him acquire the black leaf flowery dew. Yet in the end, Shui Ying did not give him anything. Instead, Great Emperor North River destroyed his avatar. Dongbo Shui Ying had long seen through him. This northern river was too ruthless. For the sake of his own path, he would do anything. Emperor Feishue. The nearby autarch vast ancient laughed. North River bullied you to such an extent. Now that we've run into him here, it's our destiny to destroy him. If you don't object, how about we deal with him? Supreme. Great Emperor North River's expression changed drastically. He exclaimed, Why must Supreme force me like this? Dongbo Shuang was also taken aback. Eliminate Great Emperor North River? The three of them all had the power of the snake-tooth bead, thousand-eyed water droplet, to protect themselves, but this did not mean that they were invincible. This was because this protective energy was only activated due to the influence of the entire forbidden area, so it could only be used to protect one's body. It couldn't be used to attack. If he could attack, he would have easily obtained that black dagger in the orb of light space. Because he couldn't attack, the power of the snake-tooth bead, thousand-eyed water droplet, was like a heaven-defying armor on the surface of his body. No matter how heaven-defying the defense of the armor was, once they were hit, they would still be sent flying. Hence, when Dongbo Shui Ying and the others were sucked into the dark maelstrom, they could not stabilize their bodies and were sucked into the snake-tooth corridor. In other words, the moment Dongbo Shui Ying, Supreme Vast Ancient, and Great Emperor North River fought, they would similarly be sent flying. If Supreme Vast Ancient fought Great Emperor North River one-on-one, even though Great Emperor North River would be at a disadvantage, he could still barely control the situation. But the moment Dongbo Shui Ying unleashed his soul technique, that protective black light could no longer protect his soul. As a result, Great Emperor North River's combat strength would be greatly reduced. The gap between them would be like the gap between a god general and a supreme. With such a huge gap, it was a one-sided trampling. Most likely, he would be blasted into nothingness by the side in just one or two moves. One had to know that they were flying along the corridor. But because there were many regions outside the corridor where the gale was blowing. Hence, the energy consumption of the snake-tooth bead, thousand-eyed water droplet, was greater. Furthermore, the gap in strength was too huge. Supreme Vast Ancient could easily capture Great Emperor North River alive before sending him to some dangerous locations. That way, the energy of the thousand-eyed water droplet in his body would be depleted. When the energy was exhausted, it would also be the time of Great Emperor North River's death. Supreme Dongbo Shui Ying felt startled in his heart. Supreme Vast Ancient was not willing to waste a single bit of energy the moment he entered the snake-tooth corridor. And now, he was willing to waste his energy to deal with North River? How could he understand? Firstly, Supreme Vast Ancient knew that Great Emperor North River had always been arrogant in the past. The reason why he gathered the 36 god generals was because he wanted to compete with the Supremes for resources. Supreme Vast Ancient was already unhappy about it. Even though he could suppress Great Emperor North River, he could not resolve the issue. This time, with the help of Dongbo Shuang, it was much easier for him to resolve the issue. Secondly, he had already obtained that fiery red feather. This time, his harvest in the snake-tooth corridor was sufficiently huge. Supreme Vast Ancient did not mind consuming some energy from the snake-tooth bead. Furthermore, Supreme Vast Ancient wanted to make use of this opportunity to show his favor to Dongbo Shui Ying so that Dongbo Shui Ying would work harder for him in the future. Monarch Fei Shue, should we act? Supreme Vast Ancient chuckled. Dongbo Shui Ying no longer hesitated when he saw that. All right, Supreme. Many thanks. So. Supreme Vast Ancient and Dongbo Shui Ying both turned into streams of light at the same time. They charged towards the distant Great Emperor North River. How ruthless! Vast Ancient, you are planning to rely on Monarch Fei Shue to get rid of me, right? Great Emperor North River gritted his teeth. He followed along the meridian pathway and fled in another direction. Nonetheless, Supreme Vast Ancient brought along Dongbo Shui Ying. Hence, his flying speed was clearly much faster. So, one was chasing and the other was escaping. Even though there was a relatively long distance between them, it was clear that the distance was getting shorter. I can't care anymore. Great Emperor North River looked behind him. He rapidly passed through the nodes of the meridian pathway and entered a fork in the path towards a light ball dimension. Escaping into the light ball dimension? Dongbo Shui Ying felt puzzled. Escaping into it would lead to a dead end. The men? Us. Supreme Vast Ancient squinted his eyes. So. Great Emperor North River did not hesitate to rush into that light ball dimension. Dongbo Shui Ying and Supreme Vast Ancient followed closely behind. Dongbo Shui Ying was startled at the moment he entered. This light ball is huge. It should be the biggest in the entire consciousness, yet it doesn't feel any pressure at all? Ooh! After penetrating through the membrane wall of the light ball dimension, they arrived at the internal space. Dongbo Shui Ying could not help but widen his eyes the moment he entered. He could not help but gape. Even with his current experience, he was completely stunned. This was practically the most shocking scene he had ever seen since he was born. Dongbo Shui Ying watched in a daze. Standing in the void of the inner space, with a glance, he could see the surrounding membrane walls emitting a strange rhythm. Through these membrane walls, he could actually see the Broken Tooth Mountain range outside the Snake Tooth corridor. Furthermore, the Broken Tooth Mountain range he saw from this light ball dimension was entirely different from the past. An incomparably huge meandering snake appeared in his vision. This place within the Snake Tooth Corridor Forbidden Ground was the head of the snake. The serpent's body was faintly discernible as it meandered through the entire Broken Teeth Mountain range. The native worlds were actually spaces that were born from the faintly discernible body of the giant serpent. Each of these worlds relied on the giant serpent's corpse to exist. On the other side, that similarly towering thousand-eyed existence had dozens of claws, and its body was covered with thousands of eyes. The entire corpse was faintly discernible, yet it was nearly complete. Those sky-floating islands were part of this huge being's body. Just like those gray eyes and golden eyes, They corresponded to different positions on the corpse. Every strange tree had a mysterious eye at the top. In reality, those strange trees were actually tiny veins within the huge corpse. Trying to pluck the mysterious eyes from an almost complete corpse was equivalent to plucking away the eyes within the corpse. It was too difficult to destroy the corpse of such a terrifying existence. Naturally, not a single eye could be brought away. There were many mysterious items on these sky-floating islands that would cause one to suffer from a terrifying suppression just by touching them. The entire Broken Tooth Mountain range is actually formed from the corpses of two terrifying chaotic origin lifeforms. Dongbushui Ying was incomparably startled. Many sky-floating islands were formed on the corpse of the thousand-eyed creature, and many native worlds were formed on the body of that huge snake. No wonder he felt a terrifying suppression the moment he stepped on the sky-floating islands. Even the Great Destruction Realm teleportation technique was useless. One had to know that this technique could be executed in the chaotic origin dimension, yet it could not be executed on the sky-floating islands. Clearly, it had been suppressed by the remnant energy left behind by the corpse of the thousand-eyed creature. Many experts from various races are searching for the two strongest corpses of chaotic origin lifeforms in the legends. You cultivators should be searching for them too. But practically none of you know that the entire Broken Tooth Mountain range is formed from these two corpses. We are always on top of these corpses. Even though Supreme Vast Ancient had seen this scene more than once, he was still mesmerized by it. And the distant Great Emperor North River did not care about the beautiful scenery. He had already seen it. Instead, he was looking at Dongbushui Ying and Supreme Vast Ancient warily. Chapter 1277. Dongbushui Ying originally had many perplexities about the Broken Tooth Mountain range. For instance, it was like many sky-floating islands and had many vile environments. For instance, there was a lump of fog with a strong corrosive power that could kill unparalleled existences. Its threat was much stronger than that of great emperors. There were many similar environmental threats. Instead, unparalleled existences could still fight against the Death Destruction Clan's emperor on an island and survive. But the environment was so vile. It was slightly unfathomable. Because the Realm Heart Great Land was created by Yuan, and the overall environment was relatively safe. According to the legends, the Broken Tooth Mountain range was created by Yuan. Even if it was a trial, why did he create so many vile environments that were so strong? The price to create such a dangerous environment was not small. In reality, those environments did not serve as a trial. Instead, it depended on luck and experience. For instance, sending avatars to die to accumulate experience. That was not helpful to the trial of strength. Why did Yuan spend a huge price to create such an environment without any trial at all? In the legends, there were many dangers in the Broken Tooth Mountain range that were teleported over by Yuan from other places. Regardless, there were many explanations. But thinking about it carefully, there were still some contradictions. So it is formed from two corpses. Dongbushui Ying understood, that's right too. These two terrifying chaotic origin existences are huge. A single corpse is roughly 1/10 the size of an ordinary origin world. With such huge corpses, it is only natural for two of them to form the vast Broken Tooth Mountain range. Dongbushui Ying nodded. The corpses were 1/10 the size of an ordinary origin world. In reality, the length was even more exaggerated. For instance, that huge serpent had a body longer than an origin world. Its corpse was meandering. Even so, it covered the entire Broken Tooth Mountain range. But these two corpses should have been executed by Yuan. Dongbushui Ying thought. For instance, the Snake Tooth Corridor. For instance, the Broken Tooth Mountain range and Realm Heart Great Land had set down a rule that those who reached a certain level could not enter the Realm Heart Great Land. The Thousand-Eyed Water Droplet and Snake Tooth Bead were two supreme treasures that could only be activated after entering the Snake Tooth Corridor. Naturally, it was easy for the two corpses to evolve a world and set down rules. Powerful. What a powerful technique. Shuang said. He finally understood how an existence like Yuan could create a vast world. Yuan is naturally formidable. Even according to some legends that we have heard, he is an apex chaotic origin expert. Autark Vast Ancient let out a sigh as well. Even if we were lucky enough to undergo an ultimate awakening and become part of our ancestral clans, we would still be newborns despite how powerful our clans are. In order to reach the level of strength of these two corpses, I'm afraid he would have to go through many difficulties. Even if he had such strength in the end, he would still be inferior to Yuan. Dongwu Shuiying nodded. For the sake of the younger generation, Yuan had left behind two terrifying corpses and created the Broken Teeth Mountain Range. It was likely that these two were not the only terrifying chaotic origin life forms that died in the hands of Yuan. As Dongwu Shuiying and Supreme Vast Ancient conversed, they did not care about Great Emperor North River, who was not too far away. Vast Ancient, are you really not going to give me a way out? Great Emperor North River said. Dongwu Shuiying turned to Great Emperor North River. He felt puzzled inwardly. This light ball dimension was also a dangerous place. Even though there were several strange treasures here, there was no place to escape to. Yet this Great Emperor North River seemed to have something he could rely on. North River, you are too ruthless in doing things. For the sake of achieving your goals, you are unscrupulous. Supreme Vast Ancient said, even the 5 Supremes are merely opponents in your eyes. I admit that your strength isn't too far away from ours. You even gathered 36 God Generals. The Supremes are too lazy to fight for you. Yet you have offended Monarch Feishue. That is a huge mistake. Monarch Feishue has a huge influence on the battlefield. He is more useful than a large group of God Generals. Today, even if 2 Supremes work together, it would be hard for them to eliminate you. But with Monarch Feishue around, eliminating you is much easier. Great Emperor North River's expression was cold. Even against 2 Supremes, he was confident of escaping. But Dongwu Shuiying would greatly reduce his strength to the God General level. Fighting against the Supremes at the God General level? That was truly seeking death. I originally wanted to properly cultivate here and grab hold of the opportunity to step into the Supreme level. Great Emperor North River said solemnly, but who would have thought that while I was conserving the energy of the thousand-eyed water droplet, the 2 of you came? When did it become so easy to obtain Supreme treasures? North River, I originally wanted to comprehend the thousand-eyed water droplet without consuming any energy. By then, I would naturally give it to you. I've already sworn an oath. Do you think I would rather break off my path of cultivation and fall out with you? Dongwu Shuiying said, you don't want to give others a way out, and now, you have no way out either. I believe you will not violate the oath. But once the news of the thousand-eyed water droplet spreads, even the Supremes would covet it. Who knows what would happen? Great Emperor North River said, even if you and I work together, we can't stop the Supremes? Dongwu Shuiying said, as time passes, who knows what would happen? It is better for me to obtain it earlier and enter the Snake Tooth Corridor. Great Emperor North River sneered. Supreme Vast Ancient added from the side, if you did not fall out with Feishue, not only would you get this droplet, you might even have the chance to get a second one in the future. I, North River, am already satisfied with a single Supreme treasure at the Great Emperor level. I have never dared to dream of getting a second one. Great Emperor North River nonchalantly said, furthermore, given the personality of Monarch Flying Snow, I believe he disliked people like me from the start. If not for me wanting to conquer many worlds in the past, I wouldn't have done so. If not for those ants, this Monarch Feishue would not have helped me. Have you decided? Supreme Vast Ancient suddenly said. Dongwu Shuiying felt slightly puzzled. Decided? Decided what? You all aren't giving me a way out? Do I have a choice? Great Emperor North River sneered. Humph, all 5 of you great Supremes are too afraid to gamble. You have been holing up in the Broken Tooth Mountain Range. That's fine too. Let me go. Who knows, I might even reach the ultimate awakening before all of you. Great Emperor North River then turned to Dongwu Shuiying, grinning. Monarch Feishue, You are the strongest expert in the Tao of Soul in the history of the realm Heart Great Land Broken Tooth Mountain Range. You have helped me greatly, yet you have left me with no path of retreat. That's fine too. This is also my style of doing things. Not giving myself a path of retreat, The next time we meet, I might have become a chaotic origin life form. The moment he finished speaking, Great Emperor North River directly charged towards a piece of black rock by the side. Gudong, ripples formed on the surface of the black rock. Great Emperor North River charged into it before disappearing from the vicinity. What? Dongbu Shui-ing was startled. Great Emperor North River did not choose to escape to other places. Instead, he chose to escape into this light ball dimension that seemed to be a dead end. After arriving here, Supreme Vast Ancient did not continue acting. Great Emperor North River seemed to have something to rely on. Everything was clear now. So he could rely on the huge black rock by his side to escape. What is this huge black rock? Dongbu Shui-ing asked. You will know once you thoroughly sense it. Supreme Vast Ancient said, this is a path Yuan left behind for us, and also another path for you cultivators of the Great Land. This is the largest light ball dimension within your consciousness. You can see the true side of the Broken Tooth Mountain Range from here. At the same time, there is a passage here that could lead you out of the Broken Tooth Mountain Range and out of the realm Heart Great Land to a slightly more unique territory in the chaotic origin dimension. Supreme Vast Ancient was still sighing. His eyes were filled with envy and expectation. Dongbu Shui-ing had already walked to the front of the huge black rock. He sent a strand of his consciousness in. Hong, since you can't advance any further, then go to other civilizations. Temper yourself under different civilizations and compete with experts from different civilizations. Grasp that tiny bit of eternity in the Tao and jump out of the cage. Jump out of the restraints of countless civilizations and become a magnificent chaotic origin life form. A grand voice reverberated in his consciousness. At that moment, Dongbu Shui-ing was enlightened. This voice should be Yuan. And this was the final path that the experts of the Broken Tooth Mountain Range in Realm Heart Great Land could choose after failing to break through the Snake Tooth Corridor. Chapter 1278. Hong. His consciousness permeated through the huge black rock. Other than hearing that grand sound, he could also sense the teleportation tunnel. This was a technique more profound than the Great Destruction Realm teleportation technique. With a slight sense, he could sense the other end of the teleportation tunnel, a region that was incomparably far away. It was too far away from the Realm Heart Great Land. Dongbu Shui-ing had once traveled between his hometown Primal Chaos Void and the Realm Heart Great Land. The distance between these two places was considered far, but compared to the distance teleported by this huge black rock, it was many times further away. It was an extremely remote region. Furthermore, he could vaguely sense violence and chaos. Furthermore, just by sensing it from afar, the terrifying law of that region had actually affected Dongbu Shui-ing, affecting Dongbu Shui-ying's body, causing his strength to drop by 10%. Did you sense it? Supreme Vast Ancient said from the side, that region is absolutely not an ordinary origin world. It is impossible for an origin world to affect our strength just by sensing it from such a far distance. Furthermore, reaching our level, it is pointless to send us to other origin worlds. I suspect it might be a slightly unique region in the chaotic origin dimension. Dongbu Shui-ing nodded as he listened. It was indeed strange. Just sensing it from such a far distance was enough to affect his strength. That was too frightening. It is too far away from the Realm Heart Great Land. It is so far that the moment we leave, we might never return. Furthermore, Yuan mentioned that we have to temper ourselves under different civilizations and compete with experts from different civilizations. Supreme Vast Ancient said, I'm afraid we will meet a group of opponents who could fight against us. I have reached Grand Perfection Emperors, yet I can still meet opponents? This huge black rock seems to lead to a very strange region. We Supremes are not willing to fight until the very last moment. Supreme Vast Ancient said. Dongbu Shui-ing nodded. Once we are done, you can come back and explore it. It is time for us to leave. Supreme Vast Ancient chuckled. Let's go. Dongwu Shui Ying also chuckled and accompanied Supreme Vast Ancient. They left this light ball dimension together. Before leaving, Dongwu Shui Ying could not help but look around. Through the membrane, he could see the two terrifying chaotic origin lifeform corpses in Broken Teeth Mountain Range. He then glanced at that huge black rock. So. The two left. Xiao Chun accompanied Supreme Vast Ancient in his sea of consciousness, heading to the various light spheres. On the Meridian Channel, Dongwu Shui Ying closed in quickly, but he gradually stopped. The black wind whistled and blew on his body. Although it was not as violent as the black vortex at the entrance of the Snake Tooth Corridor, the black wind was still very corrosive. It consumed the power of the Snake Tooth Pearl that Dongwu Shui Ying carried with him. He ignored the black wind and tried his best to move forward. However, the oppressive feeling emitted by the light sphere in front of him continued to increase. The closer he got, the stronger the pressure became. I can't take it anymore. Dongwu Shui Ying suddenly felt dizzy. His consciousness was blurry and his soul was in pain. Retreat. He could only turn into a beam of light and retreat rapidly. As he retreated at high speed, the pressure on him weakened rapidly, and he felt much more relaxed. Just a little bit more. I didn't think that if even you, Imperial Emperor Fei Xue, can't enter, who can? Supreme Vast Ancient shook his head. The pressure is too terrifying. Dongwu Shui Ying sighed. He was very confident in his soul techniques, but he had still been forced to retreat. Let's go to the next one. Supreme Vast Ancient didn't seem to mind at all. He continued to lead Dongwu Shui Ying. If he could enter on his own, he would have long since entered. He had sent Dongwu Shui Ying there, but now he was unable to enter. That was why he had sent Dongwu Shui Ying to try. It was another light ball dimension. Although the pressure was still very strong, as Dongwu Shui Ying drew closer, he couldn't help but feel delighted. It seems to be a bit easier? I might be able to enter now. His premonition was right. Although he was very close to the light sphere and the pressure was very strong, Dongwu Shui Ying was still able to enter it before he reached his limits. Good. When Autark Vast Ancient saw this, a look of delight appeared on his face. Buzz. Within the light sphere. After Dongwu Shui Ying entered, he saw many sparkling snowflakes floating around. With a glance, there were more than 100 million of them. Countless snowflakes floated around, causing the entire light sphere to feel like a dream. This is? Dongwu Shui Ying had a guess at that moment, memory fragments? He had long heard from Supreme Vast Ancient that there were some remnant memory fragments in the space of light, and the memory fragments in the sea of consciousness were divided into different categories. If there were memory fragments in every ball of light, they would all be of the same type. These memory fragments were not dangerous. Even after those terrifying chaotic origin lifeforms fell, the remnant memory fragments would leave a deep impression on them. What is this? Dongwu Shui Ying sent a strand of his consciousness into one of the floating snowflakes in front of him. At the moment he sent his consciousness in, his consciousness boomed. Each saw a huge snake. This snake was incomparably huge. It was entrenched within a piece of dark gray chaotic origin dimension. It let out a furious roar. Clearly, it was infuriated. Following that strange snake tail flashed before piercing through trillions of spatial zones. It was as if the snake tail had split into trillions. The trillions of snake tail pierced through trillions of spatial zones. At the same time, it faintly pierced through an equally terrifying existence. That existence was incredibly powerful. There were unseen laws that interfered with the other party. Dongwu Shui Ying could not see the appearance of the other party at all. This memory fragment was gone. Battle? Dongwu Shui Ying thought, just a single move? He could see that the battlefield was within the chaotic origin dimension. The terrifying chaotic origin energy that corroded him was like air to the huge snake. A single move from the huge snake had affected so many spatial zones. and an expert that could fight against the huge snake without losing out should not be too far from Yuan even if he was not as strong as Yuan. Following that, Dongbo Shui-ing continued looking at other memory fragments. More than 100 million memory fragments, Dongbo Shui-ing consecutively looked through more than 100 memory fragments. All of them were actually of the huge snake executing its snake tail, piercing through trillions of spatial zones. This technique would almost always strike the enemy in the end. Finally, there is one that is slightly different. Dongbo Shui-ing saw another memory fragment. In that memory fragment, the huge snake was meandering through the vast primal chaos void. He could clearly see that its body was longer than an origin world. But in terms of size, it was much smaller than an origin world. When he finished looking through the millions of memory fragments, Dongbo Shui-ing made his judgment. He saw a total of 3 types of memory fragments. One was the stabbing technique executed by the snake tail, another was the flying of the huge snake, and the last was the scene of the huge snake coiling around its body and turning into an illusory slumber. Every time it fell asleep, it would completely turn into an illusory state. Even though there are more than 100 million memory fragments, I've randomly chosen a few million memory fragments without any pattern, only to find that all of them are of these 3 types. Shui-ing thought, I'm afraid that all the memory fragments are of these 3 types. And these 3 are unquestionably memory fragments for the Tao of Void. Dongbo Shui-ying's eyes brightened. He was very excited. It was normal for him to see memory fragments. Supreme, Vast, Ancient, and the others had seen them before. But this was the first time he saw them, and he discovered that they were memory fragments for the Tao of Void. Naturally, Dongbo Shui-ing was delighted. The huge snake was an innate chaotic origin life form. The techniques it executed were innate. It's just that the huge snake had unleashed them to a certain pinnacle. Otherwise, it would not be qualified to challenge Yuan. These 3 techniques allowed Dongbo Shui-ing to feel the direction of its chaotic origin level in the Tao of Void. Strictly speaking, these were 3 different directions. Just like the chaotic origin 7 strikes, it allowed Dongbo Shui-ing to trace back to the foundation of the void, the chaotic origin energy. As for the supreme secret impartation technique Void Blossom that Emperor Summer acquired, it was a form of life energy that was not any weaker than the chaotic origin energy. Different directions determined the grasp of different energy. I am still far from reaching the chaotic origin level. Dongbo Shui-ing was clear of this point. How hard was it to reach the final realm from level 2 Cosmos God? How many difficulties did he overcome? And from the final realm to the chaotic origin level. In reality, this was the most fundamental leap from an origin world life form to a chaotic origin life form. How many absolute experts were stuck at this step? Ever since the birth of the Realm Heart Great Land, Undying Underworld Emperor, Emperor Summer, Limitless City Master, Ancestor Fan, none of them could become a chaotic origin life form. Like Dongbo Shui-ying's hometown origin world, there had never been anyone in history who could become a chaotic origin life form. Becoming a chaotic origin life form was an unfathomably difficult step. He had to calm his heart and make preparations to advance step by step. Dongbo Shui-ing stood within this light ball dimension. His body split into a white-robed figure. One person turned into 2. I'll leave an avatar here. There aren't any dangers here, and there's no need for me to rely on the energy from the snake tooth bead to protect myself. I'll let this avatar stay here and comprehend these memory fragments. Dongbo Shui-ing thought. Even though he only sent an avatar into the snake tooth corridor, with his strength, he could refine another avatar at any time. At this moment, he left an avatar here while the other avatar with the snake tooth bead rapidly left the light ball dimension. Chapter 1279. Outside the clump of light dimension. Dongbo Shui-ing followed the meridian pathway and soon arrived before the expectant Autark Vast Ancient. How is it? Autark Vast Ancient asked. It's a memory fragment dimension. There are no treasures that can be taken away. Dongbo Shui-ing said. Oh, Autark Vast Ancient pondered as he glanced at the other regions. Only by entering the memory fragments and personally viewing them would he be able to gain something. Under the pressure of the soul, he was unable to enter. Naturally, it was useless. However, he didn't mind it too much. After all, memory fragments were only useful if they were related to his own power. Otherwise, their usefulness was negligible. The first time Dongbo Shuang had entered his sea of consciousness, he had obtained a fiery feather. He had thought that it wouldn't be too difficult to take away treasures. Alas, he soon realized that he was wrong. There were only a few hundred clumps of light in the entire sea of consciousness. Excluding the ones he couldn't enter and those which Autark Vast Ancient had entered before, there were only 56 clumps of light that he could enter. Of these 56 clumps of light, only 33 had treasures. The vast majority of them were terrifyingly powerful. Dongbo Shuang was completely swept away, unable to take away any treasures at all. There were only 7 clumps of light. Although Dongbo Shuang had a chance of taking away the treasures, it was just a chance. South Dongbo Shuang staggered out of one of the clumps of light and landed on the meridian pathway. He held a black scale in his hand. "You got it?" Autark Vast Ancient, who was at the distant node, revealed a look of joy when he saw this. He immediately flew over, no longer caring about expending any more energy from the snake-tooth pearl. "That was a close shave. I was lucky to get it." Dongbo Shuang looked at the black scale in his hand and sighed. The thing that attracted him the most in the clumps of light was a fong. It was as sharp as a blade, but the power of the fong was simply too great. Just the invisible aura it emanated was enough to force him to the point where he was unable to approach it. If he was at Autark Vast Ancient's level of strength, he might be able to forcibly resist it and continue approaching. Although this black scale was extremely difficult to obtain, he still managed to succeed after 5 tries. All right. When Autark Vast Ancient received the black scale and sensed the deep destructive power contained within it, he revealed a look of joy. He smiled at Dongbo Shuang. "Emperor Feishue, according to our previous agreement, as long as you help me gather 3 treasures, you will be able to move freely. Now you are free to go." I thought that it would be easier to gather the 3 treasures. I didn't expect that after so many times, my snake-tooth pearl's energy would be depleted by more than half, Dongbo Shuang said helplessly. Those who need to return will probably have to do so. He had no intention of returning. He had to use every last bit of the snake-tooth pearl's power. Haha, I have to thank Monarch Feishue this time around. Autark Vast Ancient was very satisfied with his gains. I still have a long way to go before my snake-tooth pearls run out of energy. I'm planning to go somewhere else. Do you want to come with me? No need. Dongbo Shuang replied. Autark Vast Ancient nodded. Then I'll be leaving first. Swoosh. He immediately transformed into a streak of light and flew off into the distance. The snake-tooth corridor was extremely large, and even the brain of the serpents was extremely vast. The sea of consciousness was just a bit special. It only occupied a small corner of the snake-tooth corridor. Autark Vast Ancient quickly passed through the membrane and left the sea of consciousness, heading towards the other areas of the snake-tooth corridor. Swoosh. Dongbo Shuang quickly left the sea of consciousness as well. After spending a few seconds, he passed through the blood-colored membrane of the sea of consciousness and followed the path he had come from. His flying speed was much slower than Autark Vast Ancient's, and it took him more than 3 days to reach his destination. Dongbo Shuang flew towards the towering, mountain-like Snake-Tooth Mountain. The Snake-Tooth Mountain was pitch black, and countless cracks could be seen around it. Swoosh. He shot into the skies and flew towards the peak of the Snake-Tooth Mountain. Countless void cracks appeared. Dongbo Shuang could sense them and evade them in advance. When he arrived at the peak of the black Snake-Tooth Mountain, he could see with a single glance that the tip of the snake tooth was incredibly sharp. Dongbo Shuang could imagine the scene of this enormous snake biting its enemies. This snake tooth was most likely much more terrifying than his simplified chaotic origin weapon. The tip of the towering black snake-tooth mountain was extremely sharp. It was like an array formed by countless blades. Furthermore, there were blades everywhere. Under Dongbo Shui Ying's careful observation, he could see the blades becoming bigger and bigger in his vision, until they were bigger than a continent. He could clearly see the strange structure within the blades. Interesting. Dongbo Shui Ying was startled. He frowned slightly. He rapidly descended and sat cross-legged on the peak of the Snake-Tooth Mountain. He sat cross-legged in between the two blades. He was carefully comprehending. At this void Snake-Tooth Mountain, there were no dangers or ambushes. It did not consume any energy from the snake-tooth bead either. Hence, Dongbo Shui Ying could cultivate to his heart's content. One of his avatars was currently within a light ball dimension, observing those memory fragments and comprehending them. The other avatar with the snake-tooth bead was currently at the peak of the black void Snake-Tooth Mountain. In reality, the moment Dongbo Shui Ying saw the internal structure of the void Snake-Tooth Mountain, he had been attracted. But because this structure was actually very similar to the chaotic origin refinement body third level that he deduced. The third level of chaotic origin refinement body, Dongbo Shui Ying's original intention was to create a perfect body refinement technique. The previous initial version was the result of the clash of intelligence between him and Emperor Summer. This initial version had given him and Emperor Summer the strength of ordinary unparalleled experts just based on their bodies. But the initial version was still simple and crude. There were many imperfections. Both Dongbo Shui Ying and Emperor Summer wanted to walk in their own direction. Hence, they temporarily parted ways. This void Snake-Tooth Mountain. Dongbo Shui Ying delightfully immersed himself in it. The internal structure of the countless blades was incredibly profound. Dongbo Shui Ying absorbed it. Combining it with his original comprehension, finally, the second version of the third level of chaotic origin refinement body gradually took shape. In the blink of an eye. It had been 1.8 billion years since Dongbo Shui Ying entered the snake-tooth corridor. At the peak of a towering black snake tooth, a white-robed Dongbo Shui Ying sat cross-legged between two blades. He revealed a joyous look. This time, I will definitely succeed. I feel that it is sufficiently perfect. Let me give it a try. He immediately extended his right hand. Starting from the most minute changes in his body, his right hand underwent a qualitative change. Creating a body refinement technique was like this. Using one's own body to experiment, it would often cause one's body to disintegrate during the process. But as long as one's soul remained intact, one could easily condense a fleshy body with a thought. Chi. Dongbo Shui Ying tried changing his right hand first. One could see Dongbo Shui Ying's right hand's fingernails becoming sharper. They were like divine weapons. The skin on his fingers became harder and sharper. It felt as if the skin on his fingers were formed from countless blades. A terrifying power was accumulating in his right hand. Not good. Just by changing his right hand, Dongbo Shui Ying's expression changed. The terrifying power contained in his right hand had placed a huge burden on his entire body. It felt as if his entire body would collapse if he continued changing it. Even maintaining a terrifying right hand had consumed the energy contained in his body at an insane rate. How could this be? Just maintaining the right hand has consumed my energy so quickly? Dongbo Shui Ying felt incredibly anxious. Even if it was his fleshy body, it would most likely collapse in the time taken to brew a cup of tea. I failed. Dongbo Shui Ying shook his head. Theoretically, a perfect fleshy body could exist for eternity. For instance, the third level's initial version of the chaotic origin refinement body consumed a negligible amount of energy. And it was very stable. But now, the second version he comprehended was very unstable. Even maintaining his right hand cost him a huge price. But this is already the most perfect cultivation technique I have comprehended. Dongbo Shui Ying shook his head. He knew that he had thought of everything he should. He felt that it was perfect and that he could not improve any further. But now, the outcome was far from what he expected. How about the power? Dongbo Shui Ying tried waving his hand. See la, the 5 fingers on his right hand, no matter if it was his fingernails or his skin, had perfectly fused together with the countless blades on his skin. In an instant, 5 cracks were formed. Dongbu Shuiying was slightly startled when he saw this. This was after all the snake tooth corridor, and it was quite amazing for him to have such power. Even though it is far from the grand perfection I seek, in terms of power, it is at least at the Emperor level. What he and Emperor Summers sought was grand perfection. In theory, the 3rd level grand perfection of the chaotic origin refinement body would at least have a half-chaotic origin lifeform body. That was the power of a grand perfection emperor. Furthermore, the two of them desired to jump out of the cage and become a chaotic origin lifeform. No matter what, it is at least an initial emperor. Dongbu Shuiying gave a self-deprecating laugh. How could it be that easy to become a chaotic origin lifeform? Even a half-chaotic origin lifeform body is still very far away. Previously, the initial version of the chaotic origin refinement body had the strength of a grand perfection king. But now, even though it was not stable, it was still an initial emperor. It should be around 30% of the strength when he used his chaotic origin weapon, Azure River Spear. Chapter 1280. I can't even stabilize it. This flaw is simply too huge. Dongbu Shuiying calmed his heart and pondered over the cultivation technique he created. He even turned into a stream of light and flew towards the other towering black snake tooth mountains. All 8 void snake tooth mountains were surrounded by void cracks. Just looking at them would cause one's heart to tremble in fear. Dongbu Shuiying stopped in midair. He could only see part of the snake tooth mountain in his vision, but he could vaguely guess where the problem with his cultivation technique was. Dongbu Shuiying shook his head. The black snake tooth contains many profound mysteries of the Tao of Void. It is clearly at the chaotic origin level, and its level is much higher than mine. Nevertheless, this snake tooth is ultimately used for offense. The structure of the countless blades at the peak of the snake tooth is also used for offense and slaughter. I wish to absorb the profound mysteries and fuse them into my body. Naturally, my offense would be strong, but it would be hard for me to stabilize it. Could a purely offensive item be stabilized? For instance, a chaotic origin weapon, or this void snake tooth. Both were offensive items. Similarly, they could stabilize their existence for eternity. But comparatively speaking, it was easier to balance the various aspects of the body. But it was much harder to maintain a balance with an aggressive attack. It's a pity that I don't have any other materials that I can use for reference. Dongbu Shuiying shook his head. Even though he had viewed the memory fragments, he could only view some scenes and could not truly analyze them. Like this snake tooth, he could see the internal structure of it. From there, he could modify the structure of his own body. Chaotic origin weapons are basically chaotic origin sand. They are non-living objects. Dongbu Shuiying shook his head. The snake tooth is after all a part of the body. Let's go and have a look at other places. Dongbu Shuiying had memorized the internal structure of the snake tooth. Furthermore, he could not improve on it within a short period. Hence, it was meaningless for him to stay here. So, turning into a stream of light, Shuiying continued flying in the snake tooth corridor. In the following days, Dongbu Shuiying explored the snake tooth corridor to his heart's content. There was no helping it. Although he had asked Supreme Vast Ancient about the snake tooth corridor, and Supreme Vast Ancient had told him a lot about the Tao of Void, Supreme Vast Ancient's answer was, the 8 void snake fangs are the most conspicuous. As for the others, I haven't discovered anything related to the Tao of Void. Of course, I'm not proficient in void techniques, and my eyesight isn't good enough. It's possible that I can't see anything related to the Tao of Void. As for the Tao of Mirage and Illusory Realm, although the Snake Tooth Corridor was a legendary forbidden ground, there was nothing related to it. Hometown, Primal Chaos Void, Myriad Ancient Sacred World. In a small city, Dongbu Shuiying and Jing Qiu were currently at a wine shop by the roadside, enjoying the unique delicacies and wine of this wine shop. The waiters of the tavern were serving the customers attentively. They dashed around the tavern and served delicious food and wine. Third brother, have you paid enough to become my disciple? Big brother, rest assured. It's about time. The next time the Fu Tian sect accepts disciples, I'll be able to take them as my teacher. By then, I'll definitely cultivate to the Void God realm. By the side, the waiters were slightly free. Two young waiters were conversing with one another. And what realm did Dongbo Shui Ying and Jing Qiu have? They could easily hear the voice transmissions of the two true gods. Jing Qiu softly said, in this era, there are still many beings cultivating and risking their lives. Nevertheless, the entire primal chaos void is expanding continuously. It's getting closer to the great apocalypse. It's still too early. Dongbo Shui Ying chuckled. There are still more than 10 trillion years. That's right. But during the great apocalypse, everything will become empty. There are only a few that you can bring away, Snow Eagle. Jing Qiu looked at those young waiters who were filled with vigor. Dongbo Shui Ying nodded. Bringing living beings to other origin worlds was not an easy task even for him who had reached the final realm in the Tao of Void. Even his loved ones and good friends had to be brought over many times. Hence, it was destined that he could only bring a few. This era, Dongbo Shui Ying was currently the strongest expert standing at the apex in both his hometown and in the realm Heart Great Land. But similarly, he had many unfinished matters. For instance, the enemy who killed his teacher Gu Qi, Sacred Master. Dongbo Shui Ying was naturally not willing to let the Sacred Master, who had killed countless people, live. But if we were to reach the next era, even if we could resist against the supreme law, we would still fall into a deep slumber during the incubation period of the next era. Dongbo Shui Ying understood this point. I am stronger than Sacred Master. It is possible for me to fall into a deep slumber for a longer period. During this period, there might be variables. It was impossible to resist against the supreme law within an origin world. Even terrifying chaotic origin experts like Yuan and Lord Lo Cheng would be suppressed after entering an origin world. Hence, the strength they could exert was limited. If I want to kill him, this era is the best opportunity. But in the past, when Sword Master pursued after Sacred Master many times, he could only injure Sacred Master lightly. Sacred Master did not even lose more than half of his life force. Currently, I can only maintain my strength at the unparalleled level. I am slightly stronger than Sword Master. Dongbo Shui Ying was clear that unparalleled strength could not kill ordinary final realm experts in a single move. Even if he had many avatars, he could not do so. Currently, Sacred Master was hiding in the Lost World corridor. It was hard to find him. After all, the moment Sacred Master transformed into an ordinary destruction devil, Shui Ying could not even recognize him. He ultimately did not have the ability to trace a final realm expert. Wait till I become stronger. I will sweep across the entire Lost World corridor. No matter what, I will absolutely not allow Sacred Master to live till the next era. A cold light flashed in the eyes of Dongbo Shui Ying. Previously, he was not confident. But the improvement of his chaotic origin refinement technique had given him confidence. As long as his body refinement technique improved slightly, he would be able to sweep across all enemies. Within the consciousness of the Forbidden Ground Snake Tooth Corridor, within the largest light ball dimension, Dongbo Shui Ying came here once again. During this period of exploration, the snake tooth bead energy in his body had been consumed to the last strand. Standing in this light ball dimension, Shui Ying looked at the enormous snake corpse and the thousand-eyed monster corpse in the Broken Teeth Mountain range. I am unparalleled in the realm Heart Great Land and the primal chaos void. There are many emperors in the Broken Teeth Mountain range who are stronger than me, but they cultivate their bloodline energy. It isn't helpful to me at all. Dongbo Shui Ying shook his head, but even after cultivating to this stage, my Tao of Mirage and Illusory realm has yet to reach the final realm, much less the chaotic origin level. My Tao of Void isn't even stable enough to become an initial emperor. I am still far from reaching the chaotic origin level. I should just immerse myself in cultivation. How difficult is it to break through to the chaotic origin level using strength? Dongbo Shui Ying sighed. Perhaps it might be more hopeful for him to cultivate more Dao paths and control the origin source of an origin world? Spreading faith and using the faith of all living beings to control the origin of the world? It was too difficult to gain the faith of a cultivator who pursued freedom. As for soul control, Dongwu Shuiying was also very disdainful. Let's go take a look at other civilizations. What kind of place is it? Just by sensing it from afar, it could instill fear in me and affect my strength. Dongwu Shuiying arrived before that huge black rock. Previously, Great Emperor North River had entered and left. For example, the 5 great supremes who had come here before all sensed that this was an extremely dangerous path, so they wouldn't rashly choose this path. Dongwu Shuiying was too young. Even if Shuiying did not roam the world and just focused on cultivation with his cultivation speed, it was still possible for him to reach the chaotic origin level. But isn't it just a clone? Dongwu Shuiying had countless clones, so why would he care about a single clone? Let's go and take a look. Dongwu Shuiying's body was filled with curiosity and anticipation as he came into contact with the black boulder. He was instantly sucked into it. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.